The Babbar Sahib feeds 100,000 people a day. That's in a year, that's 36.5 million, which is the population of Canada. Let's not underestimate who we are and our qawm is, etc. No? We're a significant part of this world. There was a guy in a park and he had a dastar and he had a cigarette in his mouth. And I walked up to him and I slapped him across the face. And I said to him, look, basically either the cigarette or the dastar, you can't have both. Now people will be more like politically correct, innit? You can't do things like that. We didn't care. It was like, this is something pavitr to us. And you have to, if you have a dastar, you got to have a certain type of behaviour. You can't do that. You're on your phone and people are on TikTok. They don't realise that as you're swiping your hand, you're swiping away your Sikhi. And it might seem like so totally superficial, but your eyes are constantly just getting used to that all the time. We were used to a time before phones when we used to go on trains and go to work and everything, and we used to have our God get out. We used to be doing art, and that we saw that as like an amazing time for art. We think Nitnem is for Amritdaris. That is a total nonsense. Nitnem is Lajmi for Amritdaris, which means it's compulsory for Amritdaris. But everyone should be doing Nitnem. If you get anger issues, you should be doing more Japji Sahib Path. And Japji Sahib Path is such a convenient thing that anybody could learn so quickly, and everyone should be doing Japji Sahib Path. You can't be chalak with your guru. So you can be chalak with the people around you, and you can't be chalak with your guru. Your guru's there all the time. You've got to practice your Sikhi in the most sincerest way possible. So sometimes you've got to say to Guru Sahib, I'm really struggling with my Sikhi or my Amrit Vela. And this is why your relationship with Hukamnama is really important. Your reaction to most things in life should be just Waheguru. And then what happens is all the nonsense that surrounds people in Sangat no longer surrounds you.
So welcome back to another BOS TV podcast. Today we're very blessed to have Bhai Jagjit Singh on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming down all the way from the north.
Yeah, West Yorkshire.
West Yorkshire. How long was the drive?
3.5 hours, and then charging puts it on 4.5 hours.
So quite a long journey down. And today we've got a lot of topics that we're going to go through. Bhai Sahib has done a lot of seva, a lot of different types of seva that a lot of you might know about or not know about. So it'd be great to explore those things. But first of all, let's just get straight into it. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background. Are you from a Gursikh Parivar, Amritdari family, or was it more of a Punjabi background? Just to let people understand a bit more.
I think if all of us look into our Pashokar, if all of us look into our past, because most of us don't know how to look up our lineages, we all came from Gursikh Parivars. And all of our families came from Shaheed Parivars. We don't often realise that, because a lot of us, like me, I grew up as a munna. My brother had gears, I didn't have gears. My parents came here in the 60s. They got married in England. My father came here when he was 18. And we grew up very westernized. And it was only after, even though my dad was spiritually inclined, it was only after 84 that my dad kept his gears. And he had his gears originally when he was in Punjab. And then he cut them when he came here. And then... basically after 84, him and my mother took Amrit. My mother started wearing the star, and from a young age I didn't really know much about Sikhi, but we went to the Gurdwara a lot. So we went to Slough Gurdwara. My dad was quite involved in doing sevas there, and a lot of it was you matha tek, you would basically go out, play football with tennis balls outside in the car parks. Got to know everyone in our community. I would be quite involved in the Punjabi school because I wasn't afraid to go and speak on stages. It was just normal to me from a young age. And we had this really nice Gursikh in Slough called Hari Singh Sevak, who a lot of people in Slough have really positive things. He was the Punjabi school head teacher, and he would write these little paragraphs. And he would have us from the age of 7 standing in front of the whole Gurdwara speaking them things. So we would speak about Gurpurb. It doesn't matter the fact that we didn't have case or anything.
100.
And so for anyone that went through that, we got rid of this fear quite quickly of public speaking.
Cool.
And so it was quite normal for us to speak in public. And then growing up in Slough from the age of 14... I got quite heavily into martial arts. I was quite fortunate. I went to a grammar school in Slough, and so I was doing quite well academically. And I got heavily into martial arts.
What type of martial arts was that?
Mainly at that time, it was all taekwondo and kickboxing.
Mm.
We didn't have any of this mixed martial arts and them kind of things. But fortunately, I went to a really good club where there was a lot of European champions and a lot of things. So it was a tough club in Manor Park, which is an area of Slough. And did quite well, fought in tournaments and stuff by the age of 16. And then we started seeing a lot of things in our community. So we had Biar with our community, but we didn't understand Sikhi because there was no one to explain it to us. And in them days, you couldn't find anything. You know, you would get these little books and these comics from Sikh Missionary Society in Southall. But I remember going there once on my BMX bike, and it took me 3 hours to ride from Slough all the way up to Southall, trying to work my way which way to go just to buy a couple of magazines and comic books, and then ride all the way back. And it was like, that was a lot of effort, you know? And but it was like nice to see something Sikhi related, because we didn't have anything growing up, you know? There was no animations, there was nothing, you know? And there wasn't really many role models that were Sikhs. I don't remember. There was only one girl that went to my school that wore the star. And that was for us. That was like, wow, man, there's a girl that wears the star. And never saw anyone wearing bana or anything until much later on in my life. And but then what we started seeing is that there was this other community, a Pakistani Muslim community, and that we were having conflicts in Slough. There's conflicts in Southall. There was these two groups called Holy Smokes and Tootie Nungs that were Southall based, and then suddenly everyone started coming together to deal with this kind of ongoing problem, where we had this group in Slough called Chalvi Boys. That was a Pakistani group, and there was pushing a lot of drugs, and there was grooming happening. And then by the age of 14, 15, we were seen as more of the tougher kids because of that martial arts. So people would start coming to us and saying, well, this is happening in school. And we would look at some of these people doing it. They were in their 20s and they were hanging around outside our schools. And so we started doing seva on that side. There was no like official kind of thing. It didn't exist. It only existed in Southall, Shere, Punjab. But afterwards, people started referring to it as Slough and Southall, Shere, Punjab. I know, but it was always very unofficial as such. A lot of it was like, these people are attacking our community, and we just don't tolerate it. We just, we're not going to take it. And often people were outnumbered. But when the Southall Monday would come and help us, it was a lot easier. And because I was one of the few people that could speak on stage, there was only Dal Singh Tesi from Southall, from Birmingham, that would speak on stages about these issues. So they would give me time and say, Jagjit, speak on these issues, because most of our elders, they didn't understand what was happening in the schools. They didn't understand this whole thing. They were dealing with National Front. They were dealing with these kind of things. And they didn't realize, we're dealing with Muslim issues. It was like quite a new thing to them. And so that was really what we got. And then there was a lot of things that happened in Slough and Southall that were quite well known now, or about actions that happened and various other things that happened. And so I actually, at that time, was quite involved in doing talking on these issues. And grooming, that word hadn't been invented. And so we were trying to explain it without knowing that word existed. But that generation, there was a lot of daytime gigs at Palladium Palace in London. A lot of the kids would go out of schools. Parents would think they were at schools, but they were actually in these day gigs. And it was a lot of it. It was quite, it was a different culture in terms of young people were really kept a different life from their parents' eyes, from what was actually happening, and it was seen as quite normal because we had no identity, we had no culture of who we are. We were just these brown kids growing up that went to a Gurdwara. We didn't know the difference between Punjabi and Sikhi. We had no one talking to us about Sikhi, and the people that were talking to us, it didn't make sense to us. And then by total coincidence, my dad took me to an event. It was at that time run by Boss. It was in Watford. I think Bhai Jagjit Singh was one that organised it. And I went there as a Munna guy, and Bhai Jagjit Singh did a talk there. And I was like, wow, man, there's this guy with this orange ginger beard. And I didn't listen to anything that he actually said. I was like, wow, man, there's a guy with a ginger beard. And he was like wearing big damala and everything. And then second time I heard him, I actually listened to him, and it was really profound vyakya of Japji Sahib. And I was like, and that sort of like blew my mind. And then in that event, this guy came up to me who was also didn't have case at that time. Afterwards, his name's Bhai Ji from Smethwick. He's a pharmacist. And afterwards, he'd done a lot of seva with boss and camps and stuff. He came up to me as a Munna guy, and he said, oh, there's this camp, and here's a leaflet of this camp. So there's a Munna guy giving me a leaflet for Khalsa camp. And he goes, you should come. He goes, you'll enjoy it there. And I thought, all right, because the Munna guy told me, I thought, if I'd Amrit he'd come to me, I might have thought twice, But the Munna guy came to me and he goes, you should go to this camp. So I said to my dad, I might think about going to that camp. I goes, in my mind, I thought, I'm going to recruit loads of Monday for Shere Punjab. And that was my thinking, So I went to this camp in Wales. I'd never seen so many young Amritdhari people. And the great thing they did at that camp, it was huge, them camps in them days. It was like 450 people. Wow. And it was like, it was all of Cardiff University campus they had. And they'd actually run out of accommodation. So there was a few of us that were late people that joined. They actually did accommodation for us at a house off-site campus. And so I went to that camp, and on the first day, they had a football match. And there must have been about 100 Singhs playing. It was like 50 on each side. And it was like, oh my God, these guys are really friendly, because that's what happens on Monday. If you play football, everyone becomes everyone's friend. And so I was thinking, these guys are going to be really judgmental, because I was one of the few Munna people that went to that camp. And this is, you're talking 92, which was Shingarsh was going on. Everyone was talking about Khalistan and everything. And I thought, these guys ain't going to talk to me. And then by the end of that football match, I had all these guys hugging me and all these guys saying, yeah, you're one of us and everything like that. And it was a really nice atmosphere. I loved that camp. And then a really profound thing happened in that camp. About halfway through that camp, all these things were wearing bana. And you see Dr. Gurnam Singh now, as you see him on the TV channels. At them days, he just wore bana. He's huge to Mallah, and he's quite a big guy anyway. So he was doing a talk, Roop Singh was doing talks, and Dr. D and a few other people were doing talks. And in the middle of, I think it was specifically Gurnam Singh's talk, this message had come through into this camp. And the message had come through that this Singh, who was like this great Sikh in the Panth, that he'd just been Shaheed an hour earlier. And that Gursikh was Jathadar Sukhdev Singh Babbar. I had no idea who this guy was. So I'm sitting there in this lecture theatre where there's about 400 people in this lecture theatre at Cardiff University, and then half the hall suddenly burst into tears. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? You see all these Singhs with bana, you expect them not to cry. And people were really emotional, because many of these people had met that Gursikh, or met a lot of Gursikhs that were Shaheed. And he was, as long as with Baba Manachal and Bhai Jagjit Singh, they were seen as the backbone of everything that was going on. So I said to the guy next to me, I goes, who is that guy? And he goes, don't worry about it. He's like this amazing Singh. He'd done a lot of seva. And then they announced that for the Atma of this Gursikh, we're going to do a Rehnsabai tonight. And we're going to change all our schedule for the camp. And everyone's just going to do Kirtan for his Guru. So I said to the guy next to me, what's the Rehnsabai? And the guy goes, oh, you do Kirtan all night. I goes, am I allowed to come? I goes, I haven't got a case, And he goes, yeah. He goes, don't worry about it. I goes, what do I do? He goes, you go and sit at the front, behind the Kirtani. You just sing as loud as you can. You close your eyes and you don't look at anyone. I thought, fair enough. So I was enjoying the camp, getting so much biyar from everybody. And so I went and sat behind the Kirtanis. And I didn't know how to sing anything, so I was just saying, Waheguru, Waheguru, Waheguru. And got there at 9 o'clock, closed my eyes. Next thing I knew, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, wow, man, that was good. I was like, I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I've never seen so much energy around Kirtan. I was used to just having like 3 people sitting on a stage at a Gurdwara, and they call that Kirtan, and they're saying, wow, man, you can actually participate in Kirtan. It was like really mind-blowing for me, And I was a person at that time with my brother. We were heavily into rap music, NWA and all this kind of thing. So it was a lot of rap music, which was really like full of swear words and quite...
Tupac or Biggie?
It was way before that. This is NWA. That was later on, all that kind of stuff. But NWA was very cutting edge, Public Enemy, and that kind of thing. That's what a lot of us were listening to at that time, because there was no like brown culture. And when we were growing up, it was like, it didn't really exist. There was Hira, which was like a Bhangra group, and that was like seen as groundbreaking. And there was just basically, so people related to the whole black culture thing, and then suddenly it was like, wow. And we were really heavily into music, me and my brother, just listening to it. And then it was wow. And I think at that time, Mariah Carey had this song called I Have a Vision of Love, and I remember going after that camp, and I was listening to the radio, and it was like, this is number one. And I was like, she has no clue. Guru Nanak Dev Ji has a vision of love. And she hasn't got a clue what she's talking about. And then I went home, and I was like, and my brother had put some rap music on in our bedroom, etc. I couldn't listen to it. So I went round this thing I met at the camp called Bhai Hardeep Singh, lived on the road next to me. I goes, I need some Kirtan cassettes. And he just gave me like this whole box full of Kirtan cassettes, and I was like listening to all this Kirtan all the time. And all us Monday, we used to go out on a Friday night. We used to go snooker, maybe go to nightclubs and stuff like that. And so after the camp, I went out the same Monday. They rang me up and they goes, yeah, we're going out tonight. We all jumped in cars and just went, played snooker. And then afterwards, there was this place in Slough where they used to have chicken and doner kebabs. It was a really famous place, and I sat there, and I didn't want to look at the meat. Something had just changed in me. I'd never thought after going back from that camp, I'm going to keep my gears. I just thought, I love Kirtan. I'm going to listen to Kirtan now, And then I sat there, and all my friends, and we're all close even till today, But I just said to my guys, man, I can't come out with you guys anymore. Because I can't look at you guys eating meat. I don't know what it is. I just feel really uncomfortable here. So I phoned up Angar and Hardeep Singh from Slough, and I said to him, look, these two things I met, because they happened to be from my town, and they were the same age as my brother. So they knew my brother already, I said to him, look, if there's a Kirtan Dabar, let me know, I want to go there, And so they would phone me up regularly and say, look, this weekend there's Kirtan here, this weekend Kirtan here. So I stopped going out with them boys, and I started just going to Kirtan.
Did that cause any problems with your friends? Like, did they say to you, we hear in today's world, you become a Babbar, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, they called me Gyanni.
Yeah.
But they respected us.
Oh, cool.
There was no because we would still get involved in, certain things that we were doing. And it was never like a conscious decision, I'm going to keep my gears. It was like, at first I thought I'll just like grow my hair and have a gutani at the back, which was quite common because we used to see all the Monday that had good day doing stuff like that. And I thought I'll just do that. And then it was just that I never got around to shaving ever again. I never got around to actually, and it would just like happen naturally. It wasn't like conscious decision. It was just that from that day I couldn't listen to any other kind of music apart from Kirtan. And then my dad said that basically maybe you should speak to one of these things and get him to teach you. My parents were really happy because, they wanted me. I was the only one in the house that had haircut.
What was that? Sorry, how come your brother kept it?
It was so random. Even my brother said, because he came into Sikhi much later than me.
Okay.
And it was just so random. It was just that one of my mum mates one day took us to a barber shop and cut my gears.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, there's no thought process behind it, really. And so I then started keeping my gears, and I started looking at the behaviour. And this shabd used to come up in my mind a lot, which was Bande Koj Dil Haroj Fir Pashtani Mai. And it's like, really think about what you're doing, really think about where you want to go. And I never touched drugs. That was from day one, because that's what we hated. The Muslim were doing they were selling drugs to our kids, and it was always like the red line you would never cross. And I never touched anything to do with drugs, but we used to drink alcohol then. So I stopped anything like that, but I was never big into drinking. And then just started going to any Kirtan Dabar I could go into, and then what happened was I would go to a Gurdwara, and I would think, as a munna, everything I wanted to hear, no one's saying. And no one would do talks. And I thought, I'd just been to this camp and I'd heard all these great talks, because the talks that were happening at that camp, even now we haven't got some talks. I remember this talk by this Singh called Jagjit Singh barrister who's passed away, and it was called Prey and Predator. And it was about the Singhs that were fighting in the Shingarsh. Are they the prey or are they the predator? And it was like really amazing talks. And there was another one, another Singh said about how everybody is born perfect. How Gurbani teaches us, so even if it doesn't look at your body image, don't look at anything in your life, you're all perfect. Everything Maharaj does is perfect. And it was like such profound levels of thinking. I goes, well, no one's talking about this. So I just said to and I just about, didn't know how to wear the star then. So I just said to the state secretary, I go, do you mind if I just do a talk? And not thinking, I was so naive, not thinking, I haven't got gears, I haven't gone to any Santhya, I haven't gone to anything. Now if someone wants to do a talk, people have 100 questions, unless you have this perfect Jivan. And why are you doing prachar? And the Singh, because he knew me, they'd known about the things that we had done in Slough. We had a reputation for, helping out the community and stuff. And he goes, fine. And I did a talk and it had a really good impact on the Sangat. And I was talking about as a young person growing up and why we should listen to Kirtan, and how my experience of not listening to Kirtan has held me back for so many years. And I've suddenly discovered Kirtan and why all of us should start listening to Kirtan. And people are like, that is so fresh. And it's good that these young people, so I actually got really good support from the Gurdwara, because I think finally some young people are talking about good things to do with Sikhi, So then we set up the first camp in Slough in 92, and then we set up a camp in Coventry. And in them days, there was only one Sikh missionary camp that would happen, and it happened for many years, but only a small amount of people that had known about that camp. So the fact that we then suddenly went to Slough, major population area, and just done this week-long camp.
Was it a kids camp or just
kids camp?
Okay. Yeah.
And it was like, that's really good. And it had such a good impact on the community. And then other people, now we see it as such a regular thing.
Yeah.
In them days, it was like, this was quite revolutionary. And there were like 400 kids in our Gurdwara. And I was like, yeah, man, they're talking about Sikhi. And we created this thing called Sikh Information Society, which was where we started collecting all articles, and we thought anyone in press or anyone wants to speak about Sikhi, come and speak to us, and then started doing that regular kind of talks. And the good thing for me was that I realized that the Sangat is very intelligent, and most of our pracharaks don't give them the credence for that. And so a lot of pracharaks will just do gappa on stage, Mahapurusha ne karta, Abba ne karta, or someone's more missionary minded, they'll say, oh, this is not right, or whatever. And I thought, this Sangat is really profound. So I can't just go and do a talk. I have to proper research that talk. So if I'm doing a talk, it might have maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 hours of research behind it, which is an abhyas in itself. And so what was happening was that because people kept asking me to do another talk, I ended up having to research a lot about Sikhi, and there was no Google, and it didn't exist in them days. So I had to go and find books, and there's no books on Sikhi in the library. So I had to go to Sikh missionary, I had to go. So then what I was that every time a pracharak came, I would sit down with them and I'd drill them. Why does Sikhi say this? Why does Sikhi say that? Why does Sikhi, I've got to do a talk on this. What should I talk about on this? And as a result, I started learning a lot about Sikhi in a debate style. So it wasn't like in a traditional way of Sikhi. It was like, well, what does Sikhi say about capitalism? And you ask a Granthi and they will just look at you like, what was capitalism? And so I had to then start figuring some of this stuff out. But people really liked the fact that they like that talk I had where I compared world religions, which was, but people would do that, what the Sikhi and Islam and all this other, and Christianity and Judaism. But then when I started adding Taoism in there, when I started adding Confucius in there, and then when I started acting socialism, communism, capitalism in there, and they were like, wow, that's really good. And it was so revolutionary at that time. So all these Munne that had stopped coming to the Gurdwara started coming to the Gurdwara again. And so all their families were happy. Mera munda the Gurdwara nahi aunda, par aa munde ne sonli Gurdwara aunda hai. And so the Gurdwara said to me, Jagjit, hor karya kar. And then by that time I started wearing the star and everything. And it sort of just took off from there, you know. And then I went to university, etc. We started running Sikh societies there. And then what happened was, because I was the first dual language speaker that was speaking on doing this kind of stuff. And every group, every Jathebandi wanted to recruit me. And so Federation would say, Jagjit, speak on 84. And other groups will say, will you speak on our Gursikhs? Will you speak on our Gursikhs? And then what would happen was that everybody was trying to recruit me, and I was getting so confused because I was a munna, I knew nothing about Jathebandiyan, I knew nothing about all of the stuff that people were talking about me. All I knew was that the Indian government is killing Sikhs in Punjab, and we're having these conflicts with the Muslim community here. They were like my two subjects I would talk about. And then Bhai Rama Singh, I met Bhai Rama Singh. And Bhai Rama Singh just put his hand on my knee and he said, "Bahut Simran karya kar." And then I thought, everyone else is trying to use me for their own agenda. This guy, he's just trying to benefit me. And I had just taken Amrit. Amrit was a really profound experience for me because it was a very long Amrit Shar. And you'll see that in the Jatha. And they were basically, the Panj Piare, when they put their hand on your head, they won't stop until you're actually doing Saskara Simran. And they'll spend hours doing Saskara Simran with you. And it had blown me away. Oh, I think I was behosh about 2-3 times in there. And I was like, I've never experienced anything like that. And then when I speak to other people and they're saying, I took Amrit and we took Amrit in about 2.5 hours, I was like, oh, I didn't have that experience. And then I thought, Maharaj is looking out for me. It was something that my parents had said to me at a young age when I was doing the fighting in tournaments and doing stuff like that, that don't worry, Maharaj, they'll be looking at it. It was just, I don't know if it was a Punjabi kahavat, but it stuck with me, that if I do good things in Sikhi, Maharaj will look after me. And so don't worry about anything because Maharaj is there. And I always had that confidence that basically, don't worry about it, we're just going to do what we're going to do. We're not going to think about it too much. We're not going to worry about it. We're not going to be anxious or scared. It was just like with the lid. That's where things should be. And I just do what you need to do, And so whether you have to go on a Gurdwara stage, just got to do it. If you got to go and, approach some people because they're selling drugs, then you just got to do it, There was a time, this is when I was a munna, there was a guy in a park and he had a dastar and he's maybe about 7 or 8 years older than me. And he had a cigarette in his mouth. And I walked up to him and I slapped him across the face. And I said to him, look, basically either the cigarette or the star, you can't have both. And I got around town. And he was saying to me, who are you? You ain't got a turban. Why are you telling me what to do, innit? And it was like, no, this is our thing. You can't do this. So now people will be more like politically correct, innit? You can't do things like that. Yeah. We didn't care. It was like, this is something pavitra to us. You have to, if you have the star, you got to have a certain type of behavior. You can't do that. And so we just did things. And so what happened at that time was that Bhai Rama Singh, I just took an Amrit and I did Ardaas. Because Onkar Singh and Hardeep Singh, they would tell me so many stories about Gursikhs. Because Bhai Sohan Singh is Hardeep Singh's father, done Panj Piare Seva for, as long as we can remember. They knew a lot of the things that have been Shaheed since 78 and 84. A lot of people, I used to go around Hardeep Singh's house and find 20-odd people doing Simran all the time. There was a lot of bhakti in that house and it was only on the street next to mine. And so I did Ardaas that Maharaj, I've never met anybody. And so I did Ardaas that Maharaj, these things keep telling me about all these amazing things by Jivan Singh, Bhai Rama Singh, and all these things. And Bhai Rajinder Singh, and I said, Maharaj, all my life, let me just be surrounded by Ponche Hoy Gursikhs. So I did that Ardaas, not realizing the impact that would have on my life, that one Ardaas. And I thought, I want to meet people, I want to see Sikhi real trenched level, not just superficial level, And then within a week, that time when I met Bhai Rama Singh, 2 weeks later I met Bhai Jivan Singh, And then so many experiences I was having with all of these things. And I don't know what it was that any Singh that I'd met, they would take me under their wing. So Gyani Molak Singh, first time I met him, he just gave me a hug and he just sat down with me and he started telling me things. And I was like, I didn't really seem like, why were these things telling me all this stuff? It's like they trusted me for something, or they knew something about I was going to do something and in the future. So they would just, and they would all take me under their wing. And Bhai Rama Singh had a profound impact on me because everyone else was telling me to talk about things. And Bhai Rama Singh was the one person saying to me, no, look at yourself inside. Become something. And so at that time I was doing a lot of talks, then suddenly I just went totally quiet. And it was just as I started university. And something that happened to me quite profoundly was when I went and took Amrit, the Panj Piare refused me Amrit. And I know this happens more often now, especially in the circles we have, because the Panj Piare will say, you're not ready, go and wait another 6 months, go and do this first, do more solid in your Nitnem, become more. Whereas other groups, they will just give you Amrit regardless, no one ever said anything. What was happening at that time in 92, the Panj Piare said to me that, you're, how old are you? And I told him how old I was. And they goes, what are you doing? I goes, I'm about to go to university. And they goes, well, we're not going to give you Amrit. And I said, well, why? And they goes, because a lot of people are taking Amrit just for Khalistan. And they're not taking Amrit because they want to keep Red or have a Jivan. And so goes, go to university, because that's where most people do Kareta, and then come and take Amrit after university and be sincere in your Amrit. And whereas I didn't know about any of this stuff, I was very naive. I goes, well, I'm not leaving the room. And we had like this 15-minute exchange, me and the Panj Piare and the Single Tabia, where they're saying, no, we're telling you to leave the room. I goes, well, I've come to take Amrit, I'm not leaving the room. And I don't know if it was an intentional test or maybe I was just like incredibly naive. I goes, I'm not leaving, what are you going to do? I've come here to take Amrit. And I don't think that the reason you're giving me is valid because I'm not taking Amrit for Khalistan. I'm taking Amrit because I want to take Amrit. And then Bhai Sohan Singh was one of the Panj Piare from Slough. He then spoke, he goes, Main munde nu janda ya, munda theek ya. And I don't know if, I think it was a test. On the end day, Panj Piare jani jaan, I can only speculate, And he goes, munda theek ya. And then when he said that, the atmosphere changed in the room. And then they said to me, because it's really scary, I don't know if you know Bhai Janelle Singh, these guys are like built like tanks, especially at that time. And it was like hardcore Babbars, and it was like you used to look at them and you couldn't even look at them, your head was down, and you were like, oh my God, and then when they speak to you, it's like it would shake you inside, and then the Bhai Janelle Singh said to me, he was the one saying on Tabia, he goes, we're only going to give you Amrit on the condition that you have to go to Bhai Sohan Singh's house for the next 3 months at Amrit Vela and do Amrit Vela with him. And I thought, yeah, I agreed to that. That's fine. And so I was given Amrit. Like I said, it was a really amazing experience. And then every day I would go to Bhai Sohan Singh's house, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I would go and do Amrit Vela with him. If I was slightly dilla, Bhai Sohan Singh would ring me and he'd say, Pot aja, Amrit Vela ho gaya. And the amazing thing with Bhai Sohan Singh was that his door was always open. He would go there, and there was many Singhs that were growing up in Slough, or even Southall. Or sometimes people even drive from the Midlands or drive from Gravesend just to do Amrit Vela Bhai Sohan Singh. And people would sit there for 3-4 hours every morning just doing Saskara Simran. And Bhai Sohan Singh would bring his small, shortaja box room kamra with Maharaj Prakash, and he would bring all his grandkids in there, so that wherever that vibrations of Simran, and that's why you find in all his family, the Gursikhs are generational, and we used to sit there for hours just doing Amrit Vela, and they took me on this journey, and what should have been 3 months ended up being like 2.5 years. And any day that we would miss, or we were like an hour, half an hour late, that phone would ring and say, Sheti snan karke aaja. And they really helped me. And this is one of the things I think we lack in Sangha today, is that a lot of people help people come into Sikhi and take Amrit, but there's no support structure afterwards. And we as Gursikhs need to get better at creating support structure so that once people have taken Amrit, they really understand what Nam Bias is. And all of these things, when I look back, what Bhai Rama Singh did to me, Bhai Sohan Singh did to me, Bhai Malkit Singh, they really took me on that journey of Nama Bias. And for almost 4 years, I didn't speak because I stopped speaking in Gurdwara, and people would say to me, speak, but I didn't know what to say because my understanding of Sikhi had changed so much from all of this Amrit Vela and all of this. And every weekend, if there was a Rehnsabai or Kirtan, we would go there. If there wasn't, there was this Bibi Manmohan Kaur and Bhai Rama Singh, and they would have Maharaj Prakash in this little room. And there was 4 or 5 of us that they really looked out for. And they would call us, and we would start at 9 o'clock, and we wouldn't get up till 6 o'clock. And for us, that was so normal. It was like, your Jivan, you're here to build your Naam. And it was only when I was getting close to graduating, 4 years later, 2 or 3 things happened. I was getting close, because everything in my life would just fall in place. And it was like, I had so much Vishwash on Maharaj, because there were so many things happening with fighting with Muslims. There were so many things happening with my studies, so many things that were happening in terms of seva that because there was, that time was very different. I saw Bhai Jaswant Singh Kalra. I heard him speak on stages, and I mentioned you before, even at the age of 7, I even saw Indira Gandhi, I wished I'd met Bhai Janelle Singh instead. I didn't want to meet her. And she was like in this shadow silhouette in this distance. But I saw Bhai Jaswant Singh Kalra, but we didn't know who he was. Because at that time, he was just another speaker on a Sunday. Because now you know him as this great human rights thing. There was so many, this Bhai Jaspal Singh Dhillon, no one knows who he was. He done amazing seva in them days. There were so many people that were doing so much. There used to be Khalistan conferences that would last like 4 days. In Slough, and you'd have people from all over Europe and everyone coming together. And there was so much activity happening in the Panth, and we were like these people just like superficially looking at all this. And it was like, this is the way our Gurdwara are. It's all about Khalistan. It was all about, what was happening in Shingarish. And then I remember the time when Byantakand happened, and I happened to just go to Southall Gurdwara, and all these people were celebrating that this person had been killed, and this operation had happened by Hawara and Rajwana and all of these Singh, Dilawar Singh and everyone. And I see all them things that people talk about, but we saw them actually happening, the newspapers, this, Punjab Times, and we were reading about it and stuff. And so all this history was happening around us. And for us, it was like life was in slow motion because all we cared about was doing abhyas. And then I think the pivotal thing that happened was Vijay Singh. So we never expected to see a Sikh kid on the front page of the Sun newspaper. And seeing that shocked me. And then when I saw his story and I saw his poem, and I remember saying to some of the things, why are we sitting here just doing abhyas when we got Sikh kids dying in schools here? We thought Sikh kids, Sikh people are dying in Punjab. They're not dying in UK, Manchester. We were like, we got to do something about this. And then Bhai Rama Singh, there happened to be this camp we were doing in Hounslow, and Bhai Rama Singh just gave me a tappi on the back. And that's the thing what people don't realise. Bhai Rama Singh, he didn't say much. But he would just say, he would touch you, he would do something to you, and it would change the way you think just instantly. And he just said to me, Jagjit, hum bolya kar. And then just got into that phase. That's it. We're going to start talking again. But I don't think I would ever spoke about the things I would have spoken about if I hadn't gone through them 4 years.
Of the Nama Bias.
Of the Nama Bias. And I think now looking back, I'm so glad I did the Ardaas. I'm so glad I met the Gursikhs that I met. Kyani Maulik Singh, he taught me so much about how to vichar in the Panth. Because he was a spiritualist, but he was also involved in running Gurdwara, involved in things on a Panthic level. Whereas most people are spiritualists, only spiritualists. So he was multifaceted. And And at that time, I remember Bhai Jivan Singh had a huge impact on me. I'd never met anyone so humble. I'd never met anyone that could just melt someone in their hands, you know, and in front of me, he would just do like the most simple things, and so, all these people were just coming into Sikhi. And then that's when I understood what a pracharak is. And you go and just taking Bhai Jivan Singh to Kirtans, Hardeep Singh would play tabla, and I just to be the person hanging around, you know. And, you know, Bhai Jivan Singh would bump into someone on the stairs, and suddenly he would say, I've took my dastar, I'm waiting for you. And he would just tie his dastar, and that person became a Gursikh just by that bumping into him. So many things that, you know, but everything around Bhai Jivan Singh, people were just like falling into Sikhi, and we were like, all these people do all these lectures and talks and doesn't have the impact Bhai Jivan Singh has. And it was just his sweetness, his nimarta and his Jivan. And all these things were looking out for me. I remember doing my dissertation, and I missed an Amrit Vela. And Bhai Jivan Singh was in Vancouver. And so suddenly at 1 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call. And this was back in the days, no mobile phones. It was the phones with the strings and the things, And Bhai Jivan Singh had rang from Vancouver. And this is the sweetness of, by the way, Bhai Jivan Singh talks, So he rings up and he says, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh. And my mum picks it up. She's always had a solid Amrit Vela. I'm very fortunate with the parents that I have. And my dad worked at British Airways at Heathrow Airport, had night shifts, and then he had a construction company during the day. And so Bhai Jivan Singh, he phones, says Fateh, and then he says, Maybe GVG na gal karni hai. Bhai Sahib's about 80 years old. So my mum says, she's thinking my dad. And she goes, Oh, come there, and night shift there. And Bhai Jivan Singh, No, my daddy ji na nahi gal karni. My VG na gal karni. My mum's like, VG, who's talking about? And then she thought, you know, she understood, because anyone who spends time with Bhai Jivan Singh, they knew that he always thought of himself as the lowest of the low. So he would always say, I'm the young kid, even though he was 80 years old, and he'd done all this seva, and he's so well respected in the Banth. But when you talk to him, he was like the lowest, and he would say, you know, help me and please. And so she calls me down, and I'm not feeling really, because it's like I missed Amrit Vela for the first time in so long. And I was like worried about my dissertation. And he phoned me up and he goes, Piti, Amrit Vela ho gaya. Tu mainu utha liya nahi hega. So this is the way Bhai Sahib speaks, and then you realise the way Gursikhs and the way they communicate is so different from the way, you know, we would say, well, why haven't you woken up? He didn't say that. He goes, tu mainu utha liya nahi hega. Mere te bhi kadi kirpa kar de. You know, help me as well now and again. And then he just said, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh, and he put the phone down. And I was like, you know, you sort of feel a bit ashamed and a bit besharm, and then you feel like, oh my God, this singer has so much pyar with me. He's sitting in Vancouver and he's worried about me not getting up from Amrit Vela. And all these things were like that. They were helping me out so often. There was times when we were basically fighting, you know, things were happening with the Chawi boys and other gangs. And these things would say to me, or there was a BB that was very spiritual at that time. She would say to me, but just don't go in your car today, or don't do this. And so many people would look out for me. And we had such a huge amount of Bishwash on Naam. And it was like a dream the whole 4 years of university. I know we ran Sikh societies and we ran all that, but the whole period was just like a dream for us. And it was all about just do Simran. Don't think about anything else. And then when that Vijay thing happened, we thought, no, we got to now start speaking. There was no internet, there was no Google, there was nothing, there was no resources. And then, so we started speaking on stages. I got back into that mode of talking again, on Gurdwara stages. And then I went to India, and this was probably about 94. So still a lot of Singhs being killed there.
Was it your first time going to India?
We had gone, because my dad worked at British Airways, so we had free flights. So I used to go to Smargams everywhere. It was like we used to pay 10%, British Airways. I used to go to Toronto Smargam for like 50 quid. And it was like, so I was very used to travelling, And it's only when I hit 18 I was like a bit shocked to have to pay for an airfare now, and because then you're no longer family when you hit 18, and so I went to India, and I'd thought, if I'm going to wear the mala, I'm going to wear it for life, You know, like some people wear the mullah and then they wear the Siddhi pug. And most people were always saying at that time, if you go to Punjab, always wear a Siddhi pug. I know, because if you wear the mullah, it shows that you're with the Shingarsh, you know. And we were heavily into Gatka, martial arts and stuff. And I thought, I'm just going to wear the mullah. I can't bother. I've forgotten how to tie a Siddhi pug. And I went there and Delhi Smargam was happening. So I said to my dad, I'm just going to catch a train and go to Delhi. I'm going to go to Smargam. And my Babaji flipped. He's like, no, it's not safe. And a lot of things happening, a lot of Sikhs being killed on trains and everything. You're not going young Mundaya, you're going to be a prime target. And I always liked to have my big kurbanna. And I had my curry and I had various things. I said, don't worry about it, man. Maharaj is with me. It's okay. And that was just the way we thought, you know. So I had this book I was reading, Bhai Rama Singh's autobiography, then I'd come across it, and it really changed the way I was thinking about Sikhi, because up until reading, and there's so many people at that time, they'll say, this book changed our lives. And I could say that book really changed my life, because up until reading that book, I thought myself as a Sunday Sikh. You know, like Jagraj, he coined that phrase, innit? Sunday Sikhs, that you go to Gurdwara on a Sunday. And then when you read that book, you realise you got to have a panthic side to you. You got to be changing the panth. And you got to be looking about Shingarsh. You got to be looking about being a writer. You got to be thinking about going and doing Kirtan, doing Abhyas, and doing all that. You can't be just one thing. That was the one thing about Bhai Jagjit Singh. He was multifaceted. And he wasn't just a spiritualist. He was a jujaru. And he wasn't just he was a writer. And he was a Kirtani, but he didn't do Kirtan just like for an hour. He would do Kirtan like 36 hours and just do one shabd. And he would get drenched in it, you know. That's like, you know, you can't see that nowadays, you know. No one does that. And he would do that and them kind of things. And it was like, at that time, we were like, what is that? That's what Asli Tiyar Par Tiyar is. It's not like, it's like whatever seva Maharaj puts in front of you, you should be able to do it. You know? So we should be able to do multiple things, you know. And then you realize it's impossible to do that unless you do Ardaas. So if you need to do a book, you do Ardaas. Maharaj, you're gonna help me write this book, and then you'll write something totally different than you're thinking of writing, because Maharaj is helping you write it. And I so many times when I do a talk, I will just do Ardaas beforehand. Maharaj, jo bhi tusi kaho na, aap bhi kaha do. And then people come up to me and say, Jagjit Singh, you said this in this talk and it changed my life. And I say, Acha, what did I say? And they'll say, oh, you said this. And I was thinking in my mind, I don't remember saying that. But I thought, well, Maharaj must have said it through me, or must have said it somehow, or they must have heard it in some way, and they needed to hear that at that time. And then you realize everything is just a vessel. We overthink who we are. We create too much importance around ourselves or our groups or labels or logos and everything else. All of this stuff is totally irrelevant. All that's happening is just jump an arm and let the kirpa flow. And don't worry about anything too much. Don't overthink it. And this is one of the things I think later on in life has allowed me to get involved in so many different groups and do so many different things, is because I've never really been too bothered about organizations, labels, logos and everything. I find too many people get too much attached to that kind of thing. Just forget it. Just basically jap your naam, let the kirpa flow. And whichever way Maharaj is going to bring anyone in Sikhi or inspire them in Sikhi, let it just happen.
You know, when you speak about jap and naam, we ask this question a lot to different guests. When you speak about naam, do you speak more specifically about like Guru Mantar, or do you speak about, do you refer that to anything like Gurbani Abhyas, like if it's Japji Sahib? What's your...
See, when I came into Sikhi, there was no like missionary concepts or this Jathimaniya or that kind of thing. Everything was a lot more simple. For us, naam is Saskara Simran. We do it Saskaras. I know the way the Panj Piare teach you. But we were taught that you don't stop jumping naam until it's in your rooms. And so all these people that taught, what you're getting now is that we live in a world where there's a lot more distraction. And so generally people are less internalizing their abhyas. And so the expectation of a pracharak, if you look at the pracharaks before technology, their standard of abhyas was much higher. And it was the norm. If you look at Bhai Rajinder Singh, you look at Bhai Jivan Singh, Bhai Rama Singh, but if you go into any Jaswant, you look at Baba Gurbachan Singh Pindrawale and Baba Kartar Singh, that story, I use it a lot of my talks, the letter of Baba Kartar Singh to by Amrit Singh when he went to university. It's profound.
Yeah.
You know? Generally, Baba Atar Singh Mastawani Wale, it was quite normal. And even if I look at my grandfather, who I got to spend a lot of time with, and he was a very simple person from the Bend, he had a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he was like, the only thing he knew was that there was a Nanak Sar Gurdwara. He was illiterate, and they told him, Simran kar, and people would just do Simran. Now that we live in a world with constant distractions, people are doing less Naam Abhyas. They might have more knowledge on Sikhi because it's so accessible through Google, and you can research anything. But what it is that, so we've started thinking about these concepts, is Naam this, is Naam that. In them days, it was just like jap, just jap it, man, and it will just happen. So we've become like a bit lazier to actually doing the real abhyas. And so we're trying to justify not doing it. And so all of these things where people say, oh, Naam is the trees, Naam is like this, Naam is nature. And I know a lot of these kind of people, they come up with these kind of concepts. For me, it's quite straightforward. Is that the frequency of Naam, when you're jumping it Saskara Simran, the way the Panj Piare given you, will put you in the same frequency as the leaves, as the trees, as everything else. So you fall in love with everything around you. And the world is so fast, and the way you slow your brain down is by realizing your abhyas. So everything around you will carry on going fast, and you will be reacting fast. But in the mind you have is this real calmness, which your Saskara Simran gives you. I talk a lot about in the parenting course. I talk about how you insulate yourself from Naam. We're going off at a tangent, but I'll give you an example. So I, in my work, obviously run a nursing home, and it's a multi-award winning nursing home. We do a lot of palliative care, we do a lot of cancer care, brain injuries and that kind of thing, and we do dementia care. So when I started it 18 years ago, the average age in my care home was about 85. 10 years ago, I had my first person who was 50. Now the whole of the top floor is 50 people aged 50 and above. So that's a 30-year difference where people are getting dementia at a much younger age. And the way I explain this is that what's happening is the world is getting so fast, and the thing that brings on dementia most is silence. Okay? So, and if you look at in most towns, they've got more apartments and less houses. So as human beings, we have smaller families or smaller things, and most people are going back to silence. As a result, mental health is going through the roof, because we as human beings are designed to be sociable people, and we're designed to interact with each other. That's when we're most happy, when you're talking and you're interacting and everything else, not when you're sitting in silence. So unless you have an abhyas side, which knows how to basically talk to a Galpuruk in silence, that is not a healthy state for us to be just in silence without abhyas. That's why mental health is going like that. And so when we study these people that got dementia at much younger ages, it's often that they've got spent a lot of time in silence. So often family breakdowns, sometimes substance abuse, marijuana, etc. And that's why all these people, like when I speak in North America, where drugs is getting a lot more legalized, and people think, and a lot of it's done for tax, but ultimately there's a health care time bomb that's going to come, because all these people that are smoking pot and all this other stuff, and marijuana, and even in our Gom people that's very anti-bang, there's going to be a resultant time bomb as a result, because you do get that memory loss. Because when you have dementia, you lose a sense of space, time, temperature, various things, even your bodily functions, etc. So it comes like that. And so what's happening is the world is getting faster and faster, and more people are living in silence. And so what would happen is that you would normally think, I'm going to work hard, get your degrees in education, then spend your 30, 40 years working, and then real enjoyment is retirement and looking after you, playing with grandkids and stuff. But if people are getting dementia before they're getting retired, so what is the quality of their life? And then I explained that actually Nitnem is the solution to dementia. Because if the world is getting faster and faster, so what would happen before? People used to work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And so they would relax in the evenings, relax at weekends with their families, etc. Then shift work starts. And so you start having disruption in your family. One's going to work at one time, one's going to work at another time. And then what happened was that mobile phones started. So kadi kisi resta the phone aa gaya, and now they can phone anytime. This person's got this problem, this person's got that problem. Enu paise chahiye, enu aa chahiye, etc. And then what you have is social media. So Facebook becomes Glacebook and all this kind of thing. Any uthiko and you got WhatsApp, and then you got all these groups that people constantly add you to, and then you're trying to get off them. And then you also got this thing where your brain is having to work faster and faster. And now we have 24-hour news on YouTube about Punjab. So us living out here, we know more about what's going on in Punjab than people in Punjab do. And so we got this constant kind of media and constant distraction, and everyone's trying to basically fight for our attention, and naam di jagah kitte rahi, and so your brain is having to work faster and faster and faster. There's no relax time, and so eventually what happens at the age of 50, it goes pop, and then suddenly you can't remember as much as you used to remember, your sense of memory's going. And then suddenly your sense of temperature goes. And suddenly your sense of space goes, and you start walking into things. And then you don't realize that's early onset dementia. And so what you have to realize is if you're doing Nitnem in the morning, you are saying to your brain, first Amrit Vela, you're saying to your brain, slow down. You need to find your own surge. Don't need to think so much. Just get into this frequency of Naam. And this is all these people that try to explain Naam as something different. They don't know how to utilize Naam. Naam is a way that your heartbeat gets in touch with Akal Purkh, just as you were when you were a baby inside your mother's womb. You had your mother around you, and you're surrounded by your mother, and your mother is protecting you. And in the same way, we're living in this world, and in Amrit Vela, we're basically saying to our mother, Tu mera pita, tu mera mata, that Akal Purkh, you are my mother, you are my father. All this Shrishti is my mother and father. I'm just going to come in tune with you. I'm going to find my surge. And then you do your Nitnem, which is a description of Akal Purkh, which is basically showing you in terms of all the things you should learn about life. So it's a reminder to you. Then you go through Bhai Sahib, which is like an Ardaas of how to protect me and how I'm going to vichar in this world. And then you get to Anand. So if you've done your Amrit Vela properly, and then by the time you get to Anand, you should be in a state of Anand. Anand pya mere maaye, Satguru mein paya. So basically you're now in a state of Anand. So after that, you do your Ardaas, you take in Hukamnama. You are like a knight goes into battle, and he's covered in steel or whatever metal it is. You're like that, but you're covered at the beginning of a day in an armor of surge. And then as you vichar through the day, teer vachde hunde hai. As Gurbani says, arrows hit you of Kam, Krodh, Lo, Monkar. So you're in West London and suddenly you're stuck in traffic. Oh, ek teer vachda hai. And someone's shouting at you, road rage, swearing at you. Ek teer vachda hai. Imagine you're sitting in a train, you're on your phone, and people are on TikTok. They don't realize that as you're swiping your hand, you're swiping away your Sikhi. Because you're getting so used to seeing people of the opposite gender in dancing or whatever, and it might seem like so totally superficial, but your eyes are constantly just getting used to that all the time, and you all stupid things or pranks or all this kind of nonsense that, and instead of that time, whereas we were used to a time before phones, when we used to go on trains or go to work and everything, and we used to have our got to get out. And then we used to be doing part, and that we saw that as like an amazing time for part. And so you're swiping away. Then you go into the office, office politics here, and so what happens is all these people during the day, as them tir hit them of lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego, they're firing them back. So a bit of road rage, someone swears at you, you're swearing, you're rolling down your window, swearing back at them. Someone does something lustful to you in your mind, you suddenly got all these lustful thoughts. In the office politics, someone's doing politics, you're doing politics back to them. And so what you're doing is you're not in control of yourself, your vikars are in control of you. So Gurbani saying Sanj karo guna keri, so do Sanj of guns, what you're doing, short of Gunchali is what Gurbani says, you're doing the opposite. You're doing Sanj of vikars, which is what the most of the world is doing. And you're not doing any Afghan on the Sanj, you're doing Afghan on the Sanj. And so when you do Nitnem properly, them teer are coming, but instead of you firing back, that teer hits you and just falls to the ground. Because the armor of Naam Simran of both these is protecting you. And then when you come home from a full day of work, because sari grasti hai, and then what happens with most people is as soon as they open the door, all that stress, jama of all the day, they just then throw it on their kids and throw it on their wife. And they just dump everything, all that stress onto their kids. Kadi ghar wali nu char ke mari jane hai, kadi bachyan nu char ke mari jane hai. Whereas Marasan benti farman kar diya ke pehla sangat fe pangat. So basically, go and do their rasta part in that 12, 15 minutes, or however long it takes you to do as many bani as you're doing. You're soaking up all that day's stress, just like a sponge soaks up water. And then basically, that Gurbani then gets rid of it in you. And then you sit with your children, have beautiful conversations. And then before you go to sleep, what we do is we do soil the part that anything that I'm thinking about, don't let it go into my sleep. Instead, let me have a deep sleep, so I need less hours of sleep, because I'm having a deep sleep. Even if you have an Apple Watch, you know how much deep sleep you're having, And then basically, then you have your fresh for Amrit Vela, and you start again. So your Nitnem, because I believe Gurmat is more relevant today than it's ever been before. Okay? The reason for that is, if we look at our grandparents, if they're on kids, if we're from Punjab, I know some people from Africa and other places like that, just to be gay. But their jobs were very physical jobs, and mentally they were relaxed. So my grandfather was built like a tank, because he was working in the kids, in that heat, with fresh organic food, but mentally he was quite relaxed. So that's why our Buzurgs are in our Gurdwara till their 90s, and they're still quite healthy, and they're still doing Langar Seva all day long. We're not going to be like that. We think, oh yeah, we're going to live as long as them. No way, because they were tough. That's why when you look at Kisan Morcha, all these Buzurgs, mainly elderly people, I remember doing the daily updates at that time, and a lot of people were reading my daily updates at that time. I was thinking every day, we couldn't do that. Spend a year cold, heat, this because they're tough. We're people that are basically sitting in front of computers, sitting in front of screens, and our bodies are weak, having hip problems, basically, etc. And we have any kasht, anything that's hard, we can't handle it. Our bodies are, and mentally we're quite drained. So we're going to be, as soon as we're hitting 50, 60, 70, unless we're not doing something physically or helping ourselves in terms of mentally, we're going to have serious problems. We're not going to be healthy until our 80s and 90s. And so they were physical jobs that were mentally relaxed. We're now in basically lazy jobs in front of screens, but mentally quite taxed. Now, what's going to happen with artificial intelligence is that we're going to have psychological jobs, and we're going to be physically even more weaker. So because the Guru Granth Sahib fundamentally speaks to your brain, it's fundamentally talking about the relationship between Atma and Paramatma. And what is getting taxed the most is our brain. Because science is now so developed, every part of our body is replaceable, apart from our brain. We can give you from the health service a hip, and you'll be, or knee, you could go and run a marathon. Your liver, heart, everything can be replaced. You can't replace the brain. So people are living longer, but they're getting dementia. So the key thing that is going to help you prevent dementia is Nitnem. Because in that 24-hour cycle, you're slowing your brain down in a time where your brain's constantly having to work faster. Does that make sense? And so the way I talk about Sikhi and the parenting courses and everything is 100% practical. Because for me, I believe that what's the point of doing prachar if it's purely theoretical? It should be practical. We're not here to have a philosophical conversation on things. If Sikhi is not practical, you're not actually living it, what's the point of discussing it? And so the way I do the parenting course, and one of the reasons people really like it, is that it's full of just ideas and seeds and solutions about how we're living in this capitalist world, how we're going to use Gurbani to navigate it, not just for our kids, but for ourselves and for the grandparents, and how to make that family plan around it. And so we have to realize that dementia is a real thing that's going to affect all of us, because 1 in 3 people are going to get dementia. You know? And we have to use Nitnem in the right way. And one of the biggest things that we have is that we have this galtfehmi in our community that we think Nitnem is for Amritdaris. That is a total nonsense. Nitnem is Lajmi for Amritdaris, which means it's compulsory for Amritdaris. But everyone should be doing Nitnem. So if you don't have gears and you like your glassi in the evening because you're neither on the without it, you should be doing more Japji Sahib Path. If you got krodh, if you get anger issues, you should be doing more Japji Sahib Path. Japji Sahib Path is such a convenient thing that anybody could learn so quickly, and everyone should be doing Japji Sahib Path. And if you study about General Ayub Khan, who became the Prime Minister of Pakistan, his relationship with Mool Mantar, the girl that was a Hindu girl from Delhi, that was the first astronaut from India, her relationship with Japji Sahib, So if that can happen to a Hindu girl from Delhi, and that can happen to a Pakistani Munda who became a Prime Minister, what can happen to armed Sikh kids? So our relationship with Gurbani has to fundamentally change. It should be a practical relationship.
Just quickly, sorry, you spoke earlier about like the mental side and the physical side. And I think you definitely answered the question, but it'd just be good to kind of focus on that for a second. People that would do the Nitnem, do their part, and they say that, but I'm still, depressed, I'm still anxious. What would your vichar be on that?
Okay, I'll answer this in 2 parts. The first thing is that I don't really talk about mental health and depression. I used to when I was first doing prachar, because there's very few people talking about it, and I know a lot of pracharks do talk about it. I've gone through this situation where I fundamentally realized through Maharaj's Kripa I've never been depressed. So why should I talk about something I don't understand? And I think if you go and speak to someone like Gurpreet Singh from Sikh Dads, who's actually went and studied this area, and he's a lot more qualified. So I really wouldn't want, I'm uncomfortable speaking about things I'm not an expert, that you don't understand. So fortunately for me, the relationship I've had with my parents, my family, and with Gurbani and Gursikhs, I've always been really optimistic and happy, and everything in my life just seems to fall in place. So I've never really felt like, I've been times where I've been down or unhappy, but then I just do Ardaas. And then the solutions just seem to come. So I've not really been in them places, so I don't really want to talk about, because only then people will know what they're going through. But the one thing I would say about that aspect of life is that every day is a new day. And when I run 3 businesses, and some of them are abroad as well, so internationally. And I'm not particularly, I would say, successful, but I'm comfortable. Maharaj has looked after me. And I would say that, when you're in business, you go through highs, you go through lows. When you're on a low, it's like, if you say to someone, Kiddan Paji, tu theek hai? And the person will say, yeah, chardi kala hai. And you think, what chardi kala, man? You sound like you're about to start crying, innit? What kind of chardi kala is that? So then you realize, actually, when you go through your journey of abhyas, you have this thing called sukh and dukh. And this is what most people's lives are. They go up and down. And this is their worldly life and their spiritual life. So your worldly life is you go to maybe a camp or a samagam and you get inspired, and then you're back into Kaljug. Then you go to another camp and samagam and you're inspired and you go back into Kaljug. And for most people, that is their Sikhi journey, ups and downs. Times when they're really inspired, times when they're not. And what happens is when you get married, it should be that there's 2 of you. So if one's up, the other one's down, the other person pulls that person up. And so you're supporting each other. So no one should ever be down. They should always be uplifting each other. If you have a successful marriage. I'll talk about that afterwards in the thing about how to make that possible. But then you have that saying in what we have in our community, which says, Sukh vele shukrana, dukh vele ardaas, har vele simran. So Sukhvil Shukrana, which means that basically when you have good times, don't be so happy that you're having pangra and having a glassy, because all that's going to happen is you're not going to be more happy, you're just going to sweat more. Essentially, when are you most happy? When you ask Aam Banda, when you're most happy, they will say when they're reflective. Their family might be sitting in front of them, weather might be good, and they're in a state of sage. So people that do bias, they will understand what a state of sage is. For Aam person that is not into spiritualism, that will be the time when they're just reflective, But they'll say, actually, I was really happy then, Because when you understand life, you realize our brains will only remember the extremes. So if you look at your childhood, you will only remember when you're extremely sad and when you're extremely happy. And then everything else in the middle will be deleted. You will not remember every day of your childhood. But you'll remember the times when you're extremely sad and extremely happy, and they'll become your childhood memories. So our brain is very efficient like that. It will only remember the extremes. So what happens is when you're Sukhi, Maharaj is saying, Shukran na karo. Saying, Maharaj, Dhanvad, Badiya Danya, you're looking after me. I'm thankful for you. When you're Dukhi, it's not like you're so dukhi, you're just going through ice cream tub after ice cream tub, sitting on the sofa, crying with your friends. Instead, you say, Maharaj, actually, yeah, things are not great at this time, so I'm just going to do Ardaas now. And tomorrow's a new day, and don't worry about it. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the way my mind thinks. I just don't worry about it. It's like, tomorrow's a new day, it's all right, fresh start, let's just go again. And you just start again. And then, but it says, Harve le Simran. So that's the interesting bit. Why Harve le Simran? The reason Harve le Simran is because if you keep doing Sahasrara Simran, you get to the point where there's no longer Sukh or Dukh. It's like Gurbani says, iron and gold. They become irrelevant to you. So if you're happy, Chalo theek hai Maharaj, Waheguru. You're sad, Chalo Waheguru. Because you're doing Harve le Simran. And so what you do is you're no longer up and down. You develop this thing called sage, which is just like in the middle. But then you keep doing Simran. And so you're no longer in sage, which is in the middle, so you've gone beyond Sukh and Dukh. And then you develop this thing called sage, and then from then you go on to this thing called Anand, which means that you're still doing Simran, but you're no longer in sage, you're actually in this beautiful stage, which is Anand. So the times when you're happy, you like that all the time. You become so carefree about life, and everything is positive. Because ultimately, Waheguru is doing everything. So if you have a bad time, we say, Goini, Maharaj has probably got a better plan for you, don't worry about it. And if it's, if it's good, and they think, Waheguru, it's good. And then you have this thing where you've gone through Dukh and Sukh, you've gone beyond that, you found sage, and then from sage you've now gone on to Anand, and then from Anand, you're now like in Chardi Kala. So that's what Chardi Kala really is. It's a mindset which has gone through this journey of Abhyas. So all these people that keep saying, oh no, Abhyas is just like Shrishti and everything. Well, everybody in the world sees Shrishti unless they're living in concrete towns. And the science shows that even if you live in a concrete town, if you go to greenery for one weekend, your brain works 15% more efficiently. Because we as human beings are not designed to live in concrete cities. We're designed to live near Haryavali. That's why we're most kush. It's one of the reasons I left West London. I live in nature. It's nice where I live. It's fresh air. So I always have a joke with people in West London. They goes, why did you leave West London? Because I wanted to breathe fresh air. And you will only understand that when you live outside London. When I lived in London all my life, it's normal. When you go to somewhere like Derbyshire, Peak District, or Yorkshire, it's fresh air.
Even the water.
The water's softer, it's nicer. But anyway, that's tangent. But the key thing is that you only experience Chardi Kala if you've got Naam Simran. Everything ultimately, if you read every line of Gurbani, you find some people, they will love doing Bard. And that's amazing. And some people love doing Kirtan. But it doesn't matter what you love doing, ultimately it's telling you to do the same thing, which is Simran. Every Shabd in Gurbani will take you back to Naam, because everything, whole message of Gurbani is a relationship between Atma and Paramatma. And what we do as Sikhs is sometimes, is something that Shiv Charan Singh originally said to me. And I have a lot of time for that Singh. It helped me a lot in my early years. And because he would say things and it was like so out of the box, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So he said to me that Sikhi is very beautiful, but Punjabi is complicated. And I was like, yeah, Punjabi's got this thing about caste. Punjabi's got this thing about, superficial Sikhi, where they want to have the drinks, and because we're used to, you don't get that as much now, but we're used to seeing Gurdwara committee people that are running the off licenses, because that's what used to happen in the 80s and 90s, and so we saw a very hypocritical side of Sikhi. A lot of that's cleaned out now, and there's a lot more Amritaris now, and just better examples of Amritaris, and there's a lot more prachar now, but we saw a very different thing. We saw this, a lot of this has been an evolution because of the prachar that's happened over all these years, and but what happens is that it's only through experiencing Naam does everything make sense. That's why when people talk about these kind of fantastical kind of things, for us it's like, no, we've done the Sangat of the people we did Sangat of, and they took us through this journey, and this is why everything around us makes sense. And your version of it is not something that we're particularly comfortable about, because if that was true, everybody in the world would be in Chardi Kala. But actually, we live in a country where 60%, according to the NHS, 60% of the country is suffering from depression. And we have more social inequality than ever before. We're having more family issues than ever before. We're having all these societal problems. So Naam is not something that anyone can just see and the things. Naam is something you have to jump and you have to experience, and you have to create that spirit-born nation inside of you. And so you have to be problem-solving inside of you. And it comes from Uddham. If it was just as simple as that, everyone would be doing it. The spirit of the Khalsa has to be churned inside of you. That's why this Purani will say, Dod jada dord rirkna hai na, eda naam, and jado kende khanda karkao. And these are all pratam boliyan of Gursikhs. That khanda is from the tip of your stomach to the top of your dasam. And it's only through them sasa are you getting that khanda going up and banging, 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 and banging. And for some people it might take a few years. For some people it might take a few lifetimes. But you're banging, banging, banging with them sasa, with that Waheguru, until it opens up and your dasam is open. So you have to go through Uddham process.
And did the Guru, like you said already, was that a big contributing factor to that, the Guru Sikhs and the Sangat you had around you then, that gave you that Uddham, you could say then, to do the Naam Abhyas?
Yeah, because what it is this generation before us had a really strong work ethic. And I think it's not just that generation, it's been, and when we come to these westernized countries, we see the work ethic of our elders, but we slowly fall into this kind of laziness of mobile phones, distractions, and just sitting on sofas and, staying up late at night and not getting up in the morning, etc. What people don't realize is that your body, most of your hormones, and a lot of the time when your body repairs yourself is while you're asleep. And that time between 12 and 2 is when a lot of your hormones inside of you, they regenerate. And that's when your body is fixing itself. That's why it's really important not to be staying up too late. And what happens is that that time of, this is why a lot of people struggle with Amrit Vela. They struggle with Amrit Vela is because they don't understand deep sleep. And if you understand deep sleep properly, Amrit Vela becomes quite easy, because you don't need alarms. Your body will self-wake. And you ask anybody, and that's why when all the system that Guru Sahib has taught us, Thanda Pani Ishnan, now we think Thanda Pani Ishnan is hard. You wait until you live in Toronto. Man, that Thanda Pani is on a different level. And I remember the Toronto Singhs, Michael Reesing, would come to a Khalsa camps here and they say the Pani is too warm. And it's like, Thanda Pani. They go, it's too warm, it doesn't wake us up enough. And so we've got into this system, where laziness is just coming in. And this is why if you speak to listen to people like Sant Janel Singh and all these other things, they'll say to them, look, the things that are not these Barle Singhs, theek hai inako paise pare likhiya, but them sings from the pens and them sings that are just, he goes, O Keemtiya. and they are valuable because they have that work ethic, that spiritualism. They got the toughness about them, and we have to respect that about elders. That's why most of the generation, they can't do langar di seva, Gurdwara di seva the way the previous generation. And it's that the resilience, it's the whole stamina of doing seva.
If you don't mind, G, can you just go for that quite, not brief, it's up to you how much detail to go into, because we don't really get this opportunity, and I'm sure a lot of the Sangha that are listening won't get this opportunity to speak to somebody who, you know, is such an abhyasi in Amrit Vela. And when you talk about deep sleep,
I wouldn't say I'm an abhyasi in Amrit Vela.
Ji.
I'll be quite frank with you. There's no point, you know, making up something just to pretend you're something important. You know? I would say that time I spent with the Gursikhs, I'm still living off that Sikhi. Because you will go through every phase of your life. You know? There's times when you have to work really hard, times when you're running businesses, times when it's like often I have young mothers, you know, when I'm doing the parenting course, and they'll say to me, you know, like, Bhai Sahib, I'm finding Amrit Vela really tough because I've got this like 3-month-old baby. It's keeping me up at night. And I remember Bhai Rama Singh had the same question. I was sitting next to him because what it is a lot of people, this is a mistake that I think a lot of young people seek. When they go to camps and stuff, they'll spend a lot of time with other young people. I know? And because of my experiences with my brother and other things like that, I've always used to be hanging around people older than me. Okay. So when I went to camps and everything, when I was coming to Sikhi, I would spend all my time with the Gursikhs. So I wouldn't leave Bhai Rama Singh's side or Bhai Jivan Singh's side. I wasn't interested in who was playing football. Even now when I go to camps, I never do activities. I'm not interested in that. I'm there for something, you know? And I remember this young Bibi, she came to Bhai Rama Singh and she said to him, Bhai Sahib, I can't do my Amrit Vela. I'm really struggling. I'm having to wake up with this kid and, you know, feed the kid and everything. And Bhai Rama Singh said to her, look, basically, if you had no child and you had no grest, you would have to do more uddam in your abhyas to get to the same level that you're having to do now. You think Maharaj doesn't know that you've got a child. Maharaj gave you that child. I know Maharaj has given you that grest. I know. So a person who is like, some people will basically be celibate and they would say, I'm just going to be abhyasi. They will have to do so much more abhyas to get to the same place as that young mother, because that young mother is carrying on life. I know. So Maharaj knows his kid. I know. And so what happens is at different stages of your life, you'll have different levels of Amrit Vela. But the key thing I believe, in Sikhi is all about sincerity. You can't be chalak with your guru. I know. And so you might be chalak with the people around you, and you might be thinking, I should be at Amrit Vela, but I'm on my phone. No, I should be asleep, but I'm basically watching late night TV and that kind of stuff. You know? So you can be chalak with the people around you. You can't be chalak with your guru. Your guru's there all the time. You know? And so ultimately, what it is you've got to practice your Sikhi in the most sincerest way possible. So sometimes you've got to say to Guru Sahib, I'm really struggling, you know, with my Sikhi or my Amrit Vela, or I'm really struggling with this, or I'm really struggling with that, you know? And you allow Maharaj, and this is why your relationship with Hukamnama is really important. It was something that was drilled into me. There was two things, there's a lot of things that was drilled into us. One was, Bhai Rama Singh used to say to us, keep a handkerchief in your pocket. You know? And what he would do is, every time we went to a Gurdwara, he would always do it religiously. He would always use that handkerchief and do Joriani Seva. You know? And he would say, keep that handkerchief in you, and during the day, when no tir vajdeya of Kam Krodh Lo Mankar, take that handkerchief out and just wipe it on your forehead and say, Waheguru. And when you physically start doing that, you'll be amazed at the experience of that. Because it's just something about that handkerchief, especially if you keep using it and you're doing a lot during the seva, how quickly you focus back into Nam. And you don't allow these tir to take over you too much. You know? And the other thing was Hukamnama. Your relationship between Ardaas and Hukamnama, because I will often say I have this talk called Conversations with Waheguru. And when I do that, it's quite emotional for elderly people, because I do dual language prachar and Gurdwara. And in there I talk about how many years have you been coming to this Gurdwara? And I say to him, has it been 5? And most of the Sangat will put hand up, 10, 15, 20. And then when I get to 40, and all of them are looking around, and there'll be still a lot of people putting their hands up. And I'll say 40, 50 years, has anything changed? Are you still the same person? Because Sikhi is all about change. It's all about that relationship of Manmukh to Gurmukh. So if we look at, was Sajjan Thug a good person or a bad person? And we can have this debate, And most people, Sajjan Thug was a serial killer. He had an ashram and he would kill people. So the worst person in society is a serial killer. But then Sajjan Thug was the worst person in society. He's a serial killer. But he heard one shabd from Guru Nanak Dev Ji and he became Bhai Sajjan, a great Gursikh of our Panth. So he was the worst person in society, but he was still better than me. Because it only took one shabd to change him. And we hear all these shabds in the Gurdwara. And so when I first started coming to the Gurdwara after Khalsa Camp, and I would think, I don't understand anything. You would have people like Maskeen doing, and Maskeen's gatha, when you're a pracharak, when you're orator, you really appreciate other orators. It's just something naturally, you start listening to them. So when I listen to Amrit Vela or Sant Janel Singh, all of these, and I think, that's a good orator. That person knows how to speak. And you like Maskeen was like symphony. He would create these like an artist, the way he would explain something. And you think, that person, he's, there's some colour there. And I used to listen to all these things and I was like, I can't understand the word you're saying. How is that relevant to me? So I'd had experience of all these great Gathagars. And so I thought, as that guy who was just keeping his gears, I thought, I'm never going to leave this Darbar Sahib until I learn something. So I'm not going to be that person that just comes and goes for 15, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So what I used to do is the tabla, the beat, I would just say, Waheguru, 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 and then I would like, Maharaj Kirpa Kareem, one day let me understand something. And that was the thing. I would never leave that Divan in Slough Gurdwara until I'd actually felt some anand. And then I'll go. So I always felt it's like, imagine in my hand I've got a jug, and in that jug water is flowing out, and that is Darbar Sahib. There's that jug, and constantly Gyan is coming. And it could be through Kirtan, Katha, or it could be through silence during the weekdays. But that is still amazing. And because some people, it's such Galjug, they need silence because their world is full of clears. And we're this Khali glass in my other hand. And what we're doing is we're coming to the Gurdwara Khali and we're leaving Khali. And we come to the Gurdwara Khali and we're leaving Khali. And because I see Nivke on it, and Gurbani can then Nivke ao, which come with your head in your hands. So you're coming to learn. If you come to learn at a Gurdwara, your relationship with Sikhi and the Gurdwara totally changes because you won't leave until you learn something. And so what happens is you bring your head down, you come there Khali and you get full and you leave full. You come Khali, you leave full. And that is really important with our relationship with the Gurdwara, is that we should never leave a Gurdwara until you learn something. It could be just an experience of Sahaj, from like I was doing the beat of the tabla, if you don't understand something. But now we have so many resources, you got Sikhi to the max and everything else, you can learn more. Them days we didn't have anything. Because Satgur hoye dayal, Satgur will give you everything. This is why being sincere is really important in Sikhi. Satgur will always give you what you want. So if you go to that Gurdwara and you want a bit of politics, you'll meet someone that plays politics. If you go to that Gurdwara and you want a bit of Ninda Chugli, you will basically meet that person. Satgur's Dayal. If you go to a Gurdwara and you want to do Seva, you'll meet someone who's doing Seva and you'll start enjoying doing Seva with them. If you want to go to a Gurdwara and you want to do some Bhakti, that person with Bhakti will come to you. And you'll sit down doing Bhakti. So the key thing is, what is the Ichha with which you're going to that Gurdwara with? And then you realize your Sangat is a mirror of you. So if you look at your Sangat and they're all doing Ninda Jugli and politics and clowning around, you've attracted them people. Because that's the way you are, and that's why if you're a Bhagatiyala person and the person is doing Ninda Chugli, and they'll say to you, you know what happened, this guy's just done this or that person's just done that, and your response is, why Guru? They're not going to come and tell you anything again, because they're going to want something back in return, a reaction from you. And if your reaction is just, why Guru? They thought it was a waste of time telling him. And so basically, your reaction to most things in life should be just Waheguru. And then what happens is all the nonsense that surrounds people in Sangat no longer surrounds you. And what you do is you insulate yourself from the nonsense. There's so many people I've seen come into Sikhi, and they get caught up in all the nonsense, the socializing, the politics, the scandals, and all this other stuff. And one of the things that I felt that I didn't want to get involved in was all of that nonsense. I've always felt that I came into Sikhi, I only got that Sangat because there must have been some reason, so I have to do something for the Panth. And so I don't really look at what each group is doing, because I'm not really into too much of this kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of clone culture in our community. There's a lot of obsession in terms of what Jathebandi you are, what group you are, and all this other stuff. And sometimes in my life I've got into them because I'm not hiding it. I do love going Rehnsabai. I do love going to Kirtan. I do have a lot of time for the Jatha, but it's not perfect. And when I'm traveling, I do come across a lot of Taksali Singhs and have a lot of Pyar with them. There's issues there. And I do come across a lot of Nihang Singhs. And when you travel as much as I have and you stay in, everyone will tell you all the problems in all their groups. And if your response is just Waheguru, for me, it's not my problem because it's not my group. My group is the Panth. And I remember being interviewed on a TV channel in Toronto, and there was this whole thing at that time between Tadriyala and Tumma, when, they try to shoot him, etc. And they were saying, Jagjit Singh, you come to Toronto and everyone comes to listen to your talks. What's your opinion on this thing? Are you with Tadriyala? Are you with Tumma? Because they're trying to all figure out which group is he with, And I said to him, it doesn't matter to me. I goes, they're both lifestyle Babbar, and they're both interested in your money and your attention. And I goes, I have no money and no attention for either one of them. And for me, the biggest issue is not Daksal or missionary or all this stuff. For me, that more of our kids go to nightclubs than go to the Gurdwara. That's a bigger issue for me. And that's where my interest is. That I see a lot of people interested in Punjab, and I'm a Khalistani, I'm not hiding it. But for me, my gift is that I was born in the West. I understand kids growing up in the West, and I've now got to a stage where I'm in the twilight years of my life, and I don't understand people growing up in Punjab. There's enough people doing seva on that side. I just want to talk to the families out here in the West, and that's where I spend most of my time doing the things that I do, because I understand what their kids are going through. And for me, it's about challenging the colonialized ideas that we have, challenging the identity crisis that kids are going through, showing how kids can be really confident with their Sikhi, showing them that Sikhi should be centered around Naam and not just getting dressed up, not just attending smagams, barsis and everything and looking the part, that there actually should be a relationship between Atma and Paramatma. And because I understand kids growing up in the West, first thing, most kids growing up in the West that are brown-skinned, they have an identity crisis. Because the first thing is that a lot of them think they're a minority. I mean, if I was to say to you, it might be a difficult question because you're in Southall or West London, I remember asking people in Brampton, I thought that's a wrong question, But, if you ask most people growing up in England, do you feel like a minority? If I was to say to you, do you feel like a minority in England?
No, I know. Maybe when I was very young and I moved out of Southall, then yes. Only for a couple of years, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, because you're in Southall,
Yeah.
And if you ask most kids, what is that? Because if you go to elite schools, like my kids have gone to elite schools, I've gone to a top grammar school, is that you will find that brown kids were less likely to be the head boys, the head girls. They were less likely to be the leaders in sports. And I've drilled that into my kids. You're going to do the elite things. You're going to be the best in sports. You're going to be doing the best. And that's why I've taught my children how to overachieve. Because for me, it's all about mindset. If you believe you can do something, if you can manifest success, you then become success. And these are all the things I teach in the parenting course. It's not just about how to raise good spiritual children. It's about how to make successful people that are doing amazing things on this earth.
So you spoke about the parenting course. throughout the podcast, but can you like formally introduce it? How did this even come about then, the parenting course in the first place? How long have you been doing it for? And for the Sangha that are watching, like, yeah, just...
How can they also get involved or come to the course?
Okay, so if we finish off on that point, is that most people, I find most young people that are growing up here, that brown skin, not just here, but if you go to America, even in Canada, and Europe, Australia, they'll feel like minorities because everything that's been projected onto us is white. Most of the people we see on TV are white. Maybe now it's more mixed because of Netflix and Amazon. Because Netflix and Amazon realize the biggest markets are China and India. So they are intentionally getting the brown character or the Chinese character. But before it was all Hollywood and it was all white, etc. Your news is always white. And then you realize actually we talk about being a multicultural society, but the education system we've been grown up in is also basically white. So let's roll this back. So when I say to young children, actually, you are not a minority. You might be a minority growing up in England because it's 80% white. You're not a minority on this earth. The majority of people on this earth are brown. Because the equator's in the middle, that's where the sun is more. Obviously, if you go to more of the extremes, people are lighter skinned. But all the people in the middle... But all the people in the middle are brown. So whether they're Latino, whether they're from North Africa, whether they're from India, even Southern Asia, China, majority of the population on this world is brown. So stop feeling like you're a minority. And you watch that kid's confidence just like, what? Is that true? And you see, and it's these little things because it changes the way children think. And this is the whole thing. I don't want our kids to be growing up and they become more insular. And with technology, we're becoming more socially awkward people as well because we don't mix as much. I know that because when I grew up, I used to know everyone living on my street. I used to know how to go on a BMX from one town to another town. I know most kids don't even know how to ride a BMX. Yeah, I know, but they know how to play Xbox. Yeah. And then what it is majority of people are brown. That makes kids feel confident, and it is. And then what I say to them is actually, if you look at what you're taught in school, it's racist. And people are like, oh my God, is that, this guy's like, it's a bit out there. Okay, so let me explain something. The history we are taught in schools is not human history. The history we are taught in schools is white history. Okay? Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. There was brown people there already. They were called the Aztecs, the Incas, an Aborigine tribe, the Apache tribes and all this other stuff. Brown people already traveled there. He might have been just the first white person, but even that, because the Vikings had already gone there beforehand. So he just documented, and we suddenly taught this in history. Captain Cook didn't discover Australia. Brown people already there. Guru Nanak Dev Ji was the most travelled person on this earth. Even till today, we don't know the full extent of how far Guru Sahib travelled, but we know that he didn't just travel on this earth, we travelled in other planets as well. That's why he knew that there's multiple planets and all this stuff. Peer Dastagir and all the Sakya. And so brown people have been here, and they've been travelling and doing it. And suddenly all these kids are like, oh yeah, we're all right. And then you say to them, well, did you know that the chemistry you study in schools actually came from China? But no one tells you that. That a lot of the philosophy and everything comes from northern India. Even the martial arts, most of them come from India, then went to the Far East. A lot of the stuff that we come from, algebra, most of it came from Persia. You're not taught that in schools, but you're taught what every white scientist discovered. And so there is that subtle programming which is happening in our schools. And then suddenly white people do everything, and you guys are the third world country, and we're the first world countries. Well, who told you that you're a first world country, and who decided who's the third world countries? Because Punjab was richer than all of these countries, and in the parenting course I talk about the Sikh story, the migration story, why we've suddenly come out here, and what is it all about, and how we were looted, how we were a more successful community in Punjab. At the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, education levels and all that kind of stuff was much higher than even modern Britain. And how it was all taken away from us. The whole story I explained there. Because it's really important for us to understand that Punjab was bigger than most countries in Europe. Even today, which Punjab is only 14% of what it originally is still 25 million people. That's more. If you look at Canada, it's 36 million people. You know, that's not that much, you know. And if you look at, if the Babbar Sahib feeds 100,000 people a day, which people say, well, that's in a year, that's 36.5 million, which is the population of Canada. You know? So, you know, let's just be realistic in terms of, let's not underestimate who we are and our qawm is, etc. You know? We're a significant part of this world. And suddenly you find all these kids, their confidence goes through the roof. You know, because they've been so bashed down that you're like the weird person who looks a bit different, and you might you got the brown skin, or you might have to wear a patka, so you're a bit different. No, we're normal. We're quite normal. And when you talk about these things with young children, you know, it's really important to their confidence. And then I say, well, actually, if you look at the way the world is designed, if you ask most people, so we talked about history, you know, we talked about how we taught white history. We should actually have a redress and actually talk about, this is something I'm going to expand on in a different lecture and probably a podcast or something, a video in the future about how we really need to teach real human history in our schools, not just white supremacist or white colonialized history. Because what do we care if Henry VIII had 6 wives? You know? If I said to you, tell me someone great, I mean, for example, they all say Great Britain. Who made Britain great? You don't say Great Russia. You say the United States of America because it's a conglomerate. You don't say the Great States of America. We don't say it's Great Punjab or Great India. So who made Britain great? You see how the subtlety is like what they say is like, oh, everyone else is an immigrant, but if they go somewhere, they're an expat. It's the learning the use of language, you know? And so what we have to think about is there's nothing wrong with us. I remember once being challenged in a university debate with atheists and Gore, and they said, well, are you British? And at that time there was the British cricket test. I don't know if you remember them days. It was there was this Tory MP called Tebbit, and he was quite racist. He was Thatcher years. And he said, well, the way we can test these immigrants is when it comes to cricket, will they support India or will they support Great Britain? Will they support Pakistan or Great Britain? Or West Indies or Great Britain? And at that time, I was lecturing in some of these universities, going doing talks in Sikh societies, and I always challenged the Atheist Society because I enjoy having debates with them. And they said to me, are you British? And there was a Muslim and a Hindu and myself. And the Hindu guy, he said, well, we're British Hindus, and etc. And he just gave like a really politically correct answer, and without putting down Hindus too much, but a lot of them are just, just basically brown Gore. It's not like they will have this real Dre Rasuls and then they're sticking to them. They like to just keep everybody happy, And the Muslim said, he goes, we've got all these countries, and but the thing with our countries is that we have a lot of conflict within Islam, etc., and sometimes we kill each other. And actually, as a Muslim, I feel quite safe in Britain. There is racism here, but actually, it's not too bad, and I class myself as a British Muslim. So they said to me, are you a British Sikh? I goes, well, tell me what being British is. Can you define being British? I goes, I don't know what it means. I goes, is it that you basically have fish and chips, you watch Premier League, and then you get drunk, and then you do Ortnia the next morning? And I don't know, what is being British? I goes, you talk about cricket and fair play. Where was your fair play during the Commonwealth and colonisation and taking over all these countries, getting rid of all their languages and looting them? I guess there's no Commonwealth, there's a common loot. That's what you guys actually did. And your country, all these Victorian country buildings that we see, all these universities and all these motorway, where did most of that money come from? It came from Punjab. All them trillions that you took from India and Punjab, mostly from Punjab, because Lahore was the richest treasury in Punjab. I goes, I'm not British because I don't know what being British is. There is no fair play. There's a lot of hypocrisy. You took our Raj away from us. But ultimately, I have education, I have healthcare because I pay taxes. Doesn't mean I have to think like you and I act like you. I can use my own brain. As far as I'm concerned, I'm only interested in thinking like the Guru Granth Sahib, thinking like Guru Gobind Singh. And as Sikhs, we have no nationality or nationalism concepts. We believe in Sarbat Pala. I think that's a more beautiful way of living. I don't care about your nationalism. We will live in Canada, UK, America, Australia, whatever, and we have no geographical boundaries, but jithe bhi assi rehne assi raj karna hai. Does that make sense? And they were like, and the Muslim said to me, that was a good answer. I should have said that. And this is the whole thing. We're programmed how to think. And I want to get our kids to stop being think in that colonialized, programmed way. And actually, we have this concept of Bhai Dawa, we have this concept of Chardi Kala, we have this concepts that Gurmat gives us. Let's express them. I know some people may like it, some people may not like it, but I don't have an identity crisis. And when I talk about this more, the more I talk about this, the more young, confident Sikhs are coming up because they listen to us and it makes sense. And then if they're confident, because the biggest problem with young people in an immigrant community is they develop identity crisis. And so when we were young growing up, no one told us the difference between Punjabi and Gurmat. So a lot of us thought that being Punjabi was Gurmat. Because we didn't know what Gurmat was. And so when you're growing up in the 80s, you could either be a white person, a Gora, which a lot of people became very westernized, or you could be a Punjabi person. But most people found this culture in the middle where they took a bit of being Gora and they took a bit of being Punjabi. And then suddenly, from my experience personally, was through Khalsa camps, was like, oh, there's this whole new thing which is called Gurmat. And then when I started talking in stages about this is Punjabiism and this is Gurmat, a lot of our young people were, well, that makes sense. That's common sense. There's no caste there. There's no gender differences there. Actually, there's a lot of spiritualism there. There's Sarbat Tapala there, all this other stuff. I really like that. And so we have this identity crisis, and a lot of our kids go through that. And so the more we talk about this stuff, it defines these very distinct lines. And so I have no problem with someone basically growing up as a Gora, westernized, or someone growing up a Punjabi, as long as they realize there is this concept of Gurmat. And when they're comfortable in their lives to actually accept that, that's their choice. But when their kids ask them the question, what is Gurmat, they should be able to define it. So we need to educate our community enough that, not saying all of you have to do part in Amrit Vela, but if your kids ask you what Sikhi is, you should be able to give them a proper answer what Sikhi is. Not this weird kind of mishmash of nonsense and confuse your kids even more. And so the thing is from doing all these talks and being involved in all these different groups and basically doing all the projects that we were involved in, all these, and seeing this whole revolution of change come in England. From Slough, Carlside started, from Slough, from Coventry, Sakita Mac started, SOPW started, the Khalsa school started, and the TV channel started. We saw all this evolution basics of Sikhi. Jagraj came into Sikhi, so many other speakers that came into Sikhi, and there's a whole raft of them now, and witnessing all this stuff. And then when you're basically knowing all these people and you're part of all these conversations from the Sikh Council to World Sikh Parliament and everything else like that, you realize a lot that from the beginning days when we were just tackling grooming or things like that we have this raft of issues, and everyone will pick their specific sevas. Every different groups have their particular sevas. And I managed to just sit back, and I've got over 120 talks on my laptop, that I've done in Gurdwara from every single thing. And I started thinking, well, we can go shotgun style and solve this problem and that problem and that problem. Let's just be really strategic. Let's just teach a whole generation how to become really good spiritual parents and raise really good spiritual children. And then what will happen is them children will come up and just solve all them problems. And so I started writing lectures on basically parenting, but not just normal parenting that you can pick up on the internet, real spiritual parenting, and how to make your child from the age of 6 months naam jap. Because them children have less access to Kaam, Krodh, Lobh, Onkar. So when they do Simran at a younger age, and these are experiments I did with my kids, got them into Simran at really young ages, and I'm seeing the impact of them, and all these kids like were in Yorkshire that were 8-year-old. For example, Gurpreet, you've interviewed him. He was 8 years old when I first met And I know all of these kind of people from, I can name so many people from around the world, even Jagraj, you know, some of the debates that I would have with him, because he was like, he would say, oh, Islam this or Islam that or this like that. And I'll say to him, Singh, man, just jap it. And I was saying, come and sit with me for half an hour and let's just do some Simran. And he was saying, like, no one tells me to do that, because he wanted to just talk all the time. And I was saying, now, Singh, we're here together. We're not going to have a conversation. Let's just do some Simran. And the thing is, it's only when you do that, that you develop that real bond and pyar. That's why Singhs were Shaheed together, because they were basically doing Simran together. And that's where real pyar comes from, not from talking. It comes from doing a bias together. So anyway, going on to this, so I started doing these things, and then from all my 120 lectures, every Gurdwara was saying to me, the Sangat really want you to do that parenting lecture again. Really, and there was 3 lectures in particular. There was one which is about how Guru Sahib did parenting and the way we do parenting. And I show the stark difference. And I show all the mistakes we make as parents. And then I talk about all these things that I'm talking about the identity crisis and everything else. And it's so different from what most people talk about. So people find it really refreshing. And especially most parents do, because they've been through that identity crisis. And then when I go to North America and I tell them we're one generation ahead of them, so you might come from Punjab, but I think of me as your child that's just been born in this country. I'm telling you, because I was born in here in 1974, this is what your child is going to go through. So isn't it more sensible that you listen to me now than wait for your child to go through all of them things and then try and deal with it? And they say, yeah, that makes sense. And then when I list, this is your child is going to have an identity crisis growing up in America or in Canada or in Europe, and this is what they're going to go through. So this is how you solve these problems. And so everywhere I was going, people kept saying to me, do them lectures. The second part is, I have been very fortunate in my house. I've never saw my parents argue all my life. And because my parents have had this asul that we just don't argue. And I thought everybody's parents were like that. And then when I went to my friends' houses, oh my God, I was like, people really live like this? No one swears. I always say to my kids, people that swear are people that have a lack of vocabulary that can't explain their emotions. So they have to swear. I goes, that's not a good thing, that's a terrible thing. And I just improve your vocabulary. And so I thought everybody's parents were like that. I remember Bhai Rama Singh one day sitting with me, he goes, you're very lucky the parents you got. And I thought, oh, I really am, ain't I? And then, so I explained to them, like with my brother, so my parents, like, if they disagree on something, they just go quiet. So they know they disagreed on something, but they don't need to discuss it. Because my dad told me something very wise many years ago. He goes that most people, if they make emotional discussion, leads to bad decisions. So it leads to things where you basically make the wrong decision or you say the wrong thing. And to see these second on the gal kar sakde and take 20 years to sort it out. That happens a lot in Restadariyan, And so he goes, never have an emotional discussion. As soon as there's something which is emotional, just go quiet. Just say why, Guru, and just go quiet. And so what they have is, like, if they disagree on something, either they turn it into a bit of a joke or they will discuss it the next day, where emotions are not high because it's something instant. That's what it is. As human beings, we're far too reactive. So you just go quiet and you have a rational discussion. So this thing my dad taught me, he goes that emotional decisions are always terrible decisions. He goes, Sehjale decisions are always sensible decisions and are rational decisions. He goes, decisions by doing Simran, Ardaas and Hukamnama are atal. So why make emotional decisions? And this is something that I've always tried to implement in my life. Don't do emotional stuff. Don't be emotional reactive. Just basically live in it, be sensible, be sage, and you always make good decisions. As a result, you don't have problems in your life. Does that make sense? Because most people's problems are they're reactive, they're emotional, and they end up in bad situations because it's one reaction is to another reaction, and it just goes into this constant whirlwind, And you'll always see them people, they'll come into your lives and their whole life is a tornado in itself, and they'll try and bring that tornado into your life. If you're a Nitnem and a Simran Karnala, you should never allow that tornado to go near you. Because every time they say something to you, if your response is just why, Guru, That's it. That tornado can never touch you. Does that make sense? You know? And so what it is, my parents were always like that. So my brother and my bubby, they become like that. Me and my wife, we said we just don't argue in our house. So this trend has now gone into our children. No one argues in our house. You know, you will have fun conversations, you have things. We just have negative conversations. There's no need for it. And then I thought, why don't we start teaching these things to people? You know? So in that course, I talk you from the beginning of your marriage. How do you have a marriage where you never argue? And most people want to have these things on talk. No one ever talks to us about this stuff. And I'll say, well, this is gurmat. And for me, this is basic gurmat. It's like, this is what gurmat is all about. For me, gurmat is, what is being a Sikh? It's about you being the best quality human being you can possibly become before you pass away. You know? And so every day should be about change. That's why Gurbani says, Bande Koj Dil Har Roj. You know? And so every day should be about, have I got too much ego? Have I got too much growth? Have I got this? What am I going to improve today in me? And every day should be a process. And so if you've got a marriage and you're arguing, there's something wrong in you. That shouldn't be. But what it is, we normalize it. And we think, well, all marriages are like that. And then you have these jokes where people say, oh yeah, life's over for that guy, isn't it? And that's total terrible attitude. It should be, oh, that person's getting married. That person's getting married to a good Sikh. They're going to really enhance their Sikhi. It's like, now I'm going to hit 50 this year. And that means a good Sikh, we were having this discussion. And that's it, man. You're getting to 50. The people I knew growing up are now starting to pass away. So I need to triple my bhakti now. Because I'm now in the twilight years of my life. These people call these tole, they're not tole, they're chittiyan from Guru Gobind Singh. Bhai Jagjit Singh, in Gurdwara, they still say to me, it's funny, they still say, Naujawan Pracharak aa gaya. And I'm like, main bhi hun Naujawan di reha, and this one person said to me, oh, Jagjit Singh, rang liya kar, dye, and I said to him, he's just joking with me, stay skatar. And I said, nahi, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਤੋਲੇ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੋਂ ਚਿੱਠੀਆਂ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਚਿੱਠੀਆਂ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਤੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਜਗਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇਰਾ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਟਾਈਮ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਤੂੰ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਕਰ ਲਾ and so Guru Sahib's writing these chittiyan to us and our time is now coming, so we have to now think is like basically we got to be going through this process and we got to be the Amrit Vela and one of the biggest issues is that we never talk about Sachkhand in our families. And one of the key things I teach in the parenting course is from day one, start talking to your children about Sachkhand. Because if you don't talk about the destination, how are they going to think about ever going there? So you start talking about how to do Simran, and your aim is to get to Sachkhand. And so your aim is every day to do Ardaas and do Hukamnama and say, Maharaj, what are you going to do today that you think I need to learn today so that I can get closer to my source? And then that child starts thinking in that way, where most of us didn't even start hearing of these things till we're 18, 19, 20, So that's basically a significant part of our life that we've wasted, So we need to start from day one. And I teach this thing in the course called 5 minutes Simran 5 times a day, which is a very easy technique that my daughter and myself, we started when we were young, when I had my first child, about how you make that child really get to bhakti at a young age, Very simple technique. Most of the families found it really helpful. And I talk about this other concept, which is called 360 Simran, which is basically in your bedroom, you should have in your house, you should have surround sound. And on a very low tone, put Waheguru. But put it on a sound where you can just about hear it. Because you will be amazed at the amount of times you sit at home and there's just silence because someone stopped talking. And as soon as someone stopped talking, or there's a break on the TV, and then suddenly you just don't hear anything, and you will hear that Waheguru. And how often that will make you do Simran. And subliminally while you're asleep, how much more extra Simran you will do. Because you're getting that constant reminder, but it's not there, like you can hear it all the time. It's very low tone. And your level of abhyas in that house will go through the roof. And it won't be just you, it'll be everybody around you. Even if you have a pet, that pet will be doing Simran. And it's because you have that surrounding around you, that Simran. And it becomes like this protection mechanism around you. And so all these techniques we talk about in the parenting course. And the reason I then decided to do it as a course was because I had so much demand for it. Even now, I've got 40 cities on a waiting list. And I mean, now year 3, I think 13,000 people have done it now. Wow. And most of this year is already booked. Most of the beginning of next year is already booked. And what it was is, because I'm in the World Sikh Parliament, I was originally just doing it in local Gurdwara, etc. And then I can't go to all these places multiple weeks. I used to do it like Sunday the Mans. And then we thought, let's just do it in one day. And we did the original one in Slough. And then people were thinking, no one's going to sit there for 8 hours. And then I thought, yeah, no one's going to sit there for 8 hours. We're very instant. But I thought, chalo, Waheguru, let's just try it. And no one's got up. And, you know, and I have the testimonials on there. No one wants to get up because it's helpful, it's fresh. And when you're talking about Sikhi in that way that you're talking about Sikhi, people just keep sitting there. So I thought, and then often the feedback is that I've learned more in one day than I've learned in all these years of going to the Gurdwara, because it's so practical. It's about what their story is. It talks about the immigrant experience and the impact on our children, the impact on our psyche, how to keep families together, how not to argue as a family, how Guru Sahib did parenting, how we should do parenting, what is your psychology with your young child, how to make your child not reliant on you or you be reliant on anybody in your family, because I learned that in COVID, how so many people pass away very suddenly and then people just go down the drain. They're psychologically, I know they're too attached to people, you know? And then we go on to, so that it starts at 10 o'clock and that normally goes on till 1 o'clock, that section of it. And then we have a half an hour break, and then we go on to part 2, which is called The Things We Say. And I show in there that words are very powerful. And if you're a Gursikh, words become very ginti. And so we should always think about the words we use, and then how you should never argue in a house. So then I show how a marriage should work, how you should talk to your children, what Nimarta is, because the world is not going to teach Nimarta because it doesn't exist anymore. Donald Trump is not going to teach you how to be Nimarta. Rishi Sunak ain't going to teach you about Nimarta. And basically we're not being taught it in schools, so we have to teach our own children it. And then I talk about how the words you use, how it causes glace in Restadariya, how to solve the glace in your Restadariya, how to solve the glace in your house. And then also in terms of what is the resultant impact on your Atma, and how the words you use, how it affects your soul, and how as a Gursikh, Gurbani teaches us, unless you don't clean your lekha as you go along every single day, you're going to build it up too much. And I explained to them how the average person, just by doing 2 Mare Karma a day, how they will have all these thousands of Mare Karma by the time they pass away. And how we're going to, and we should be cleaning that lekha as we go along. How do you clean your lekha? How is Nitnem as a protection system? How do we deal in a capitalist environment and with our jobs and everything else? And how do we create that spiritual boundaries in our houses? You know? And then how can we do seva for the panth? Because what's the point of being in Sikhi if you don't make a change in the panth? And otherwise it's selfish. You're just protecting yourself and your family. And then I talk about generational abhyas, about how not to just do abhyas for you, how to create abhyas for your own ali paniriya. And so how to generate that abhyas into your children, but then into your grandkids, and what the role of each person in the family is. So this is the grandparents' role, this is the parents' role, this is the children, and how to create a family plan. Because a lot of happens is, I show a video where I show 1,000 birds and how they all fly, but not one bird will bang into another bird. They're a family, and they're in symphony, and we have 5 people in a house and they all clash. Or janvar asi insan we should have a higher level of thinking, but they're acting more beautifully than us. And so how we get rid of all types of glace. And then we have another break, and then we talk about part 3, which is the effect of technology on children. And I explain why are children being bullied more? Why are children more socially awkward? Because the lack of naam. Why? And I show the statistics show that next generation that has a lot of technology has less empathy. If you have less empathy, you have less hamdardi, And so that's why people will get bullied more. We will get more incidences in schools. We will have more social breakdown. We have more loneliness and generally in society. And I talk about the difference between alone and lonely. because a lot of people are lonely, but a Sikh should never be alone. Does that make sense? And this is one of the biggest problems we have in society today, is that a lot of people are lonely. And that's what leads to mental health. But if you develop a relationship with your child from a young age of doing Simran, that child will never be lonely, because all it has to say is Waheguru, and it's got someone to talk to. And how we've created Guru Sahib as like this distant thing, lives in the clouds, and we have to remember him now and again, was Guru Sahib is inside you. And how you learn to talk to yourself, how to heal yourself, what is self-soothing through Simran. And all of these kind of things that we talk about. So everything is 100% practical. And then about how to create elite mindset in your children so they overachieve in everything they do, whether it's sports, academia, socially, everything, so that you're not creating children. Because I say to I said to you, my son plays academy football. My other son, he does martial arts. My daughter, she's run the London Marathon. She's the youngest person in the country to run it. That's elite things. And I said to him, it's so easy to be elite today because most people are just playing Xbox. Your competition is so much less because most people have decided that they're going to spend their lives in their rooms. And then what happens is that, so this is what the parenting course is about how to create a generation of people. And so I see it as strategic. I see it's not a shotgun, like every group's got their own projects, and that's fine because we need to be problem solving. But I see this as really strategic, that if by the time I pass away, everything's in Maharaj's hands, if 1 million people have done that course, which is what my aim is, is then we've got 1 million people that have done Simran from a young age. That's going to have a profound impact on our month. And that's why I like to think strategic, because we got to be thinking a generation or 2 generations ahead. If our parents were Mahapurush, we would have been Mahapurush. But if our parents are not Mahapurush, and we have enough soji, you have enough soji from your basics project, make sure your next generation have that from day one. Does that make sense? So that they are not like us by the age of 18, we're suddenly discovering what Sikhi is. That they're living it from day one. And you will create a generation of profound children. So I see kids that will sit through whole Rehnsabai and they're 6 years old, 7 years old. If you go to Derby Smargham, you would have seen it there. Is why? Because we've been talking about this so much now. And the parents are not like got this thing that, oh yeah, aa kataya, and then aa Mahapurush ne aa kitaya. Yeah, they're all great Mahapurushes, but every Sikh should try and be a Mahapurush. That's the message of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That all of us should be on this journey. And it's not like we have Mahapurush and we have loads of Jelle. No, everyone should be like, and what it is if you aim high, you might not get there, but you get here. It's still better than being down here. And what I see is in our Panth, we have Renaissance periods. You understand what I mean by Renaissance? So the Renaissance were when you had these Italian artists, and it was like a great period where you had so much cultural, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, etc. It was like a period where you just had the most amazing, talented artistry. We have the same thing in our Panth, where we had Guru Sahib, obviously they're untouchable. They're, this Guru Sahib. And then you have this period where you have Baba Deep Singh, Bhai Mani Singh, Mata Pakor, etc. It's a great period of Sikhi, Banda Singh Bahadur. And then we go through Shingarish, etc. And Sikhi is dying away because of Mir Banu and all the Qatl-e-Aam that's happened to us. And then you have this other than great Renaissance period where you had Jaswant Singh Ahluwalia, Jaswant Singh Ramgarhia, and Nawab Kapoor Singh, and so many, Charat Singh Sukhar Chakia, so many Gursikhs, and then they create Raj of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and then we have this other dip when we lose our Raj and everything, and then you have this other Renaissance period by Maharaj Singh, by Ranveer Singh, Baba Gurbachan Singh, Pindranwale, Sant Attar Singh, etc., Kartar Singh Sarabha, so many people you could talk about. So you have these like Renaissance periods, and I'm going around the Panth now, I'm doing these talks, And Marj Kripa, I don't know why hum rulte firte koi baat no. I'm not one special, you know. I don't know why I get called, you know. But I see so many beautiful souls in young people coming up in our panth. And I feel that we're going to have the most amazing Renaissance period of Sikhi. And it's not going to be my generation, it's going to be in these young people's generation. I know, and that is going to be so beautiful. And we're going to have Sikhi Prachar with all this kind of media and technology, because I always believe that if we had one of these great Bhagats, if we had like a Bhai Rama Singh or even a Sant Chanel Singh, and they were any of Sant Atar Singh or someone, and they were living in this period of social media, what impact they would have. I know. You know, how many people that they would hit, not just Punjabi Sikhs, but the whole world, you know. I believe that we're going to see this period, and Marj Kirpa, if the parenting course can be a part of that, to just show people this is how you bring up your kids, this is how you bring up your family. That Sikhi is not just this discussion we have, or Sikhi is not just this group that you must clone into. Actually, every family can do this because it's so easy, so practical. It doesn't matter if you've got gears, your children can still do Simran. And it doesn't matter if you got gears, you can still do Nitnem, because I know that Nitnem will make them people Amritari, you know. And it's like everyone should be doing Part, everyone should be doing Simran. No one should be arguing it in any Sikh household. So you got a generation that won't be affected by alcoholism, domestic violence and all this stuff. If you have all that stuff, you won't have grooming, because most grooming is from dysfunctional families. And you see how it's strategic. It will just change a whole generation if we do it properly. Sadi aasi asi Ardaas kar sakte hain. ਅਸੀਂ ਉਦਮ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. Does that make sense? You know? And because even if you look at every aspect of what we're doing in life is a bit skewed. You know? So if I say to most people, what do you want in life? If I said to you, Baji, what do you want? You know? And the top answer for most people is, I want to be happy. You know? The second answer is wealth, and second answer is health, third answer is wealth. You know? And health is more important than wealth, because if you got terminal cancer, your money means nothing. You know? But most people on this earth want to be happy. So we don't go to school. When's the last time you went to school and you studied happiness?
Never did.
Yeah. You know, when is the last time you went to school and you studied how to be wise, how to be humble? Because I'm telling you, at the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, you studied them. And because how to be happy is Sukhni Sab. It's how to be Sukhi, and how to be wise is Asa Divar. And how to be courageous is Chandi Divar. We studied these things when we were at that point, but we stopped studying this stuff because we came into capitalism. And now we study chemistry, biology, physics, etc. The reason we study these things and not study how to be happy is because your education system is not designed to make you happy. Your education system is designed to make you employable. Because you live in a capitalist world, and the way capitalism works is that a certain part of your population must always be working. And they pay taxes, and that taxes pays for the services for education for the young and healthcare for the old. And so your government doesn't care if you're happy. Your government just cares if you pay taxes. And that's why you'll notice your retirement age never goes down. It only goes up. Yeah. And if people in France riot, they make sure it doesn't come on the news. Because they don't want most people to realize, and your education system is only designed to make you employable. So you will spend 30, 40, 50 years just working for them and paying taxes, and your government, Rishi Sunak, Donald Trump, Biden, all these people, they don't give a damn if you're happy. No one cares. There's only one country on this earth that has a minister of happiness, and that's Bhutan. Every other country on this earth just cares about GDP, which is gross domestic product. And so everything about capitalism is, as we as human beings, socialism hasn't worked, communism hasn't worked, and capitalism is a disaster. We have more social inequality, more depression than ever before in human history, but we as human beings haven't found a better system to live by. So even your communist countries like China are really capitalist. And so we have to realize no one cares about you on this earth. You have to care about yourself. And for me, the way you care about yourself is the way you self-care is Gurmat, is Gurbani. So have your education system, and I never put education down. I've got degrees. I run multiple companies. But realize that you need another level of education in your life. This is why I explained it to Aam Sangat. And what is that education? How to be happy, how to be humble, how to be wise. Where you're going to get that education from is the Guru Granth Sahib, because it's the greatest knowledge from the greatest souls that have ever walked on this earth. So you've got to be a total beefgoof not to read it, isn't it? If you've got Guru Arjan Dev Ji's got all that effort to compile the greatest knowledge ever on this earth, so you're not having to go like the Bhagats did, where you're having to try and find it and search for it the way people did in old times, where they had to find a guru and then, do penance and, spend 20 years trying to find this one bit of knowledge. Guru Sahib just put it in one granth for us. And the problem is that we've become a society that just does Jor Sahib and just does Ramadle. And Guru Granth Sahib doesn't say do Jor Sahib on me. It doesn't say put Ramadle on me. What does Guru Granth Sahib say? It says, Gaviye, Suniye, Man Rakhiye Bhau. That basically, sing me, listen to me, read me, engage me, discuss me. But ultimately, what does that Shabd say in Gurbani? It says, Gurbani Baniye, which means basically become Gurbani. So we have to go through this implementation phase. And so what it is if we want to self-care and protect ourselves in this capitalism world from depression, from loneliness, from all the problems that society is facing, for me, the answer is so simple, is study the Guru Granth Sahib. And if you were like me, who was a munna and didn't know Punjabi, first time I read the Guru Granth Sahib was in English. There's nothing wrong with that. And we should say to people, just fine, read it. Because I'll tell you one thing, I got many fundamental ideas of the Guru Granth Sahib from that. And then what it does is later on you go and learn Punjabi, which you can now learn in 2 weeks. We've got that app from Shere charity called Learn Gurmukhi. You can learn Punjabi in 2 weeks. And that's a free app for you. Go and learn Santhya and then perfect it. Because even if you're doing search bar from your phone, which we encourage people to do through Sikhi to the max, it's got the search bar app on it now, and you can connect your pronunciation because it's got it in sound format as well. But the ras you will get from doing Ishnan, sitting there with your bana in front of Maharaj in a physical roop, you will never get from a phone. And so everything we should go back to source. And so what it is we need to engage Gurbani, and we need to teach young children how to engage Gurbani. We need to stop making children scared of the Guru Granth Sahib. I realised this when I went to Yuba City. There was 400 kids in a camp. And I saw that Maharaj Prakash hadn't happened, but all the children were still matha taking. And it's like none of them knew that Maharaj Prakash wouldn't happen. It was so obvious to me there was no Maharaj. There was no Prakash in that hall. But the kids didn't know. And then I asked, so after, at the end of the day, when we had the assembly at the camp, I goes, how many of you guys have actually touched the Guru Granth Sahib? And no one put their hand up. So I asked the parents, how many of you touched the Guru Granth Sahib? Only like 5 people put their hand up. It's a total tragedy. So we made everybody in that camp, we showed them, this is a Maharaj, this is how you touch it, because we made people so scared of Maharaj. And I understand we should have satkar, etc., but this is something that we teach when people engage Maharaj. But ultimately, we got to say to the Aam Punjabi person, if you're coming to the Gurdwara, you should be doing Sahaj Path. And I went to Punjabi school in Slough for 11 years. I never learnt Punjabi. I got my GCSE grade B because everyone that's intelligent knows how to pass exams. It doesn't mean I learnt Punjabi. Then I basically went to Khalsa camp and basically came into Sikhi and then learnt Punjabi in 2 weeks. It's actually your father taught me Punjabi in 2 weeks. And he shocked me. He goes, I can teach you in 2 weeks. And I was like, no, you can't. And he goes, yeah, I can. And he just did it. And so when you want to learn, you learn. And otherwise, so I say to people in the parenting course, I goes, have a competition in your Punjabi school that if you basically say to all the children, if you do a full search part of the Guru Granth Sahib, you never have to come to Punjabi school again. I goes, most of the kids will do a full search part just so they can have their weekends off. But you've achieved your aim. They've done a search part. And one person does a search part, they will always carry on doing part. Because Gurbani has that parskala. What we do is we run Punjabi schools. We never teach the children why they need to learn Punjabi. We have no link to the Guru Granth Sahib. And then we just force these kids, and the kids won't learn Punjabi because they don't see what the relevance is. And everything comes back to Sachkhand. Because if you look at most of us, in our ancestry, we were all Hindus or Muslims. Everyone. But someone in our ancestry decided they want to go to Sachkhand. That could have been at the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So they became a Gursikh. They took Charanpal. It could have been at the time of 1699 with Guru Gobind Singh, and they took Khandredipal. It could have been at the time of Mir Manu, which meant death. That you take Amrit, that's it. Your head's going to get cut. You're going to die. Whichever time that person took that decision in your ancestry was fundamentally important to your whole lineage, because it's the difference between you going to a Gurdwara today and you going to a mandir or masjid. So it's a very important decision, isn't it? And that person just wanted to get to Sachkhand. So look how important that is in the whole lineage of your family, and we don't even talk to our kids about Sachkhand. So we should be saying from day one, but you're on this earth to go to Sachkhand. This is why you should do Saskara Simran. And the thing with Simran is that a lot of people muddy the waters, and I'm not interested in muddying the waters. For me, people say, oh, don't do this, don't do that. For me, Gurbani is very clear. Simran is Saskaras. Simran is about Rom Rom Har Har Te Aaye. Gurbani can't be more simple than that. For you to basically do Simran, you go to the Panj Piare. The Panj Piare give you Naam, and the Naam that you given by the Panj Piare is what you do Simran with. Right. Yes, everyone can read why Guru Guru Mantar hai jab hum mein khoye, but a lot of people I've seen that have never taken Amrit, they will try and do Simran, they will get some fall for it, but the day the Panj Piare put their hand on their head and they get Simran Naam properly from the Panj Piare, you can only get Naam from the Panj Piare. That's why taking Amrit, because two things happen when you take Amrit. One, you were given Naam, the second thing is all your likha up until that point is cleared. And unless you're not clearing that likha, and unless you're not having that fresh start, it's very hard to carry on maintaining Amrit Vela. So all these people that think that they're going to do Simran and not take Amrit, it'll be very hard for them to do Amrit Vela. It's hard enough for most people that are basically Amritdhari to do Amrit Vela. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, if we say to our children, because you say to a 5-year-old, you say to him, but you're here to go to Sachkhand. And that a child will say, well, but Ma, what is Sachkhand? And you say, Sachkhand is a beautiful place that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is telling us that we all need to go. Well, how do you get to Sachkhand, Ma? And Ma will say, but, well, the way you get to Sachkhand is told us in the Guru Granth Sahib. This is why we need to read the Guru Granth Sahib. And this is why you're not just going to do Chaur Sahib of it. You're not just going to matha take to it. You're going to read it. Well, am I allowed to read it? Yeah, but anybody's allowed to read it. But you need to do a Shnan before, and you need to do this. But you should maybe let's start with a Gutka. And this is why we have it in Ramallah, because a lot of young people don't even know how to do Ramallah on a Gutka, because they're so used to phones now. So you're having this conversation with this young 5-year-old, and then you say, well, this way we should learn what Gurbani tells us. Well, how do I learn to read Gurbani? Well, this is why I sent you to Punjabi school. So you can learn how to read Gurbani, so you can learn Gurbani, then you can engage your Guru, which is the Guru Granth Sahib, and then you can get to Sachkhand. So you just took that child from day one to destination. And then that child is so intelligent, they will work their way out. They will know how to navigate. But our generation, we were never made that link. We were just sent to Punjabi school. And as a result, so let's, for the next generation, create this link. Because let me tell you one thing about Sahaj Path. Most of us ritualistically matha take to the Guru Granth Sahib. A person that starts doing Sahaj Path will realize actually, in na gyan, in ni kirpa, in na Sahaj, every day when you read a Sahaj Path, because when you do Nitnem, it's the same Baniya. And when you're doing it year after year after year, it becomes like parrot fashion. It becomes like that. You will try and constantly try and refresh it so you're doing it so should, but it becomes very repetitive. When you're doing Sahaj Path, it's different shabds all the time. And it's like Deer hit you, because there's something going on in your life, and that shabd just comes up in Gurbani. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, I know how to sort that out now, because Guru Sahib's just done the skirpa on me. So when you do Sahaj Path like that, and you keep doing it, and that's why I've seen all these Pratan Gursikhs, it doesn't matter how much amazing Kirtani they were, and Jivan they all had Sahaj Path going on. It doesn't matter what Jathebandi they were. It was so normalized that everyone was doing search party. So when you finish one search party, you start another. You know? And one thing is, then you don't ritualistically matha take. Then when you go in front of the Guru Sahib, you want to melt into that carpet. You say, this is my Guru. I just want to fall in front of you. I want to melt into that carpet, because you really understand who your Guru is and what that impact on in your life your Guru is having. Because if you look at it purely practical points, most of us have more of a relationship with our TV or our phone than we have with our Guru. We will spend more time engaging that. You know? And so we need to have a redress. Because the problem is we're coming from immigrant families, you know? And I talk about this in the course, that the thing with immigrant families is that you will go through extremes. You've suddenly gone from one country to another country, and your environment is so different. So imagine we're a bird, you know? And this bird has got two wings, you know? So this is our worldly life, and this is our spiritual life. You know? When you go through immigrant process, the first generation of Qurbani deni pendi hai. So my dad was 18. He was the oldest in the family. He wanted to go to university, and Baba Ji ne bhejta bahar. Said, go to England, 1965, just survive. Didn't know how to survive. Racism, National Front, everything. They just had to deal with it. Get on with life, you know? So they put a lot of effort on their worldly side, because they had to basically survive. They had to basically pay the mortgages, build the Gurdwara, create everything. So we have a huge amount of respect for them, you know? And so one generation has basically put all the effort onto their worldly side, and their spiritual side has been neglected. And then when you study immigrant communities, what you'll find is mostly their second generation is very well educated. And it's because they developed the work ethic of their first generation. Because they will realize, Jivan nahi parda, I'm going to have to do the same manual labor jobs. So I might as well just go and study. You know? And so they're well educated. So what you now have, you have two generations that have basically put a huge amount of effort on their worldly side. And this is what's happening in our community. You know? And as a result, our spiritual side has been neglected. How long can this bird keep flying? Eventually it's going to get fatigued and it's just going to fall. And this is why in all our families, Nanak Dukhiya, Sab Sansar. We have our cars, we have our properties, we have our jobs, but we're not happy. And we need to redress our families and find our spiritual side. And this is what we explain in the Sikh parenting course, is how to redress your families, how to practically bring Simran back into your families. And that's why I find is, even though often even I think it's too long, and I think, shall I take this out, take that out? And then if I think about it, people say, don't take that out. Someone will say, that was really important to me. So then I thought, I involve it, but I've just left it, and we're constantly improving it. But Maharaj Kirpa is having a good impact. And if the people want it in their town, because like I said, we've got 40 cities on the waiting list. If you want it, we are creating a website for it, because more and more people constantly ask me for resources. But you just go to Carl's Foundation and just ask them. Because there's so much demand for it, we only do it per alaka. What I often have is cities will say to me, will you do it in our Gurdwara? And then the next, they all hear about it, and then the next Gurdwara wants it. I ain't got time. I don't. If a Gurdwara has got more than one Gurdwara in it, so if a town has got more than Gurdwara, there's something wrong in that town. I know. What that means is the elders have had an argument, I know, and they're probably passed away, and no one else knows what that argument is about, and they're still stuck in their ways. We need to start merging Gurdwara. Let's say we have 300 Gurdwara in UK. I guarantee within 10 years, at least 20 to 30% of them will disappear. Because as the elder generation passes away, no one's doing seva on that level. So why wait until they've been so run down? Why don't you turn them into resource centres of Sikhi? Or use that money to create pracharaks like you guys do with the Vidyala. And actually, let's start merging our Gurdwara. Because we need to bring our towns together. All the problems we have in our cities, from grooming and everything else, we can't afford to have divided. And so what I often say is that people say to me, for example, if I'm doing one in Northampton, people say to me, Luton, will you do one in Luton? Will you do one in Leicester? I don't know. This is an alaka. All of you just come there. I know, because I've got to cover North America, I've got to cover Canada, I've got to cover Australia. So just this year, I'm doing, just in the next few months, I've got Boston, and we're speaking at Harvard and MIT as well when we're doing that. I've got then Leicester, I've got Chicago, and then I've got New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and then we've got Melbourne, we've got Brisbane, etc. And it's this constant flow. And then possibly might be doing East London or Aberdeen, etc. The way, because I've got this list and I'm just trying to work my way through this list. But what happened in the World Sikh Parliament was that we realised from having these discussions, the biggest identity crisis we have is in America. Because there's this massive space, people are far away from each other. It's not like UK where people quickly get together. And so if there's something from America, I made a button in the World Sikh Parliament because they all had a go at me for not coming to America. And so I said to them, look, if something happens in America, we'll put it top of the list. That's why you find there's a lot of cities in America at the moment, because we need to get through that. But what we're finding is that most people, when they see the course, they'll say, well, will people sit from 10 to 6? Well, that's been proven because 13,000 people have. But what most people say is, look, if I knew it was like this, I'd call all my restdars. So what I'm doing now is that it started off with like 100 people. Now we have a minimum of 250 people. And now most of it's in university because there's not big enough auditoriums or Gurdwara. So most of them are now in university settings where the whole town comes together. And so often people will say, I remember recently a town in West London, you'll probably know it, and they said to them, well, we want to do it, but we're not going to work with that school, or we're not going to work with this Gurdwara. And I said, well, I'm not coming. And I goes, let me know in 7 days. And then when 7 days, they all want it, and they all work together. So we want people to start working together, break down their boundaries. And it's a premier event because in one day, we say invest 1 day to save your family's future.
Right.
And we will show how to get rid of all the glares and how to create all 3 generations. We should explain why you have generational gaps, why the elder generation doesn't understand the younger generation, how to stop that so that you have really good communication, how to become preventative parents so your kids are not getting groomed, your kids are not getting put on drugs. Because why keep dealing it once they're being groomed? Why don't we go back and let's look at how we're going to prevent it in the first place? So all of the parenting course is all about preventative parenting, spiritual parenting, teaching your children humility, teaching your children how to do Simran from day one, teaching your children why you need to have search part, teaching your children the day that you pass away, how they're going to cope. We discussed all of these ideas in there. And so for most people, because they've never had them discussions, it's quite profound for them. And that's why we have a booklet now, because so many people take notes in it, it slows it down too much. So now we give them a free booklet. The whole course is free. It's all Nishkam Seva. I'm of that generation that believes that you should never sell Gurbani. And so we always say, if you find something really good about it, then praise the Guru Granth Sahib. If you find something not so good about it, blame me. And Maharaj Kripa is working well. It's just one project. I've got a few other projects in the pipeline. But the key thing is you can only do these things if you put everything else in place. That's why you always have to look at your health, you have to look at your family, you have to look at your career, and you have to look at your spirituality. And for me, Sikhi is about having all 4 in check. What most people will do is they'll have 1 or 2 in check and the other 2, but that then creates havoc in your life. There's no point saying I'm going to do bhakti if your health is in a bad state, because it's going to stop you from doing bhakti. There's no point saying I'm going to do loads of panthati seva if you can't pay your bills. And I believe that you have a lot of people that come to your sangat and they'll say Maya to bacho, and they take all your Maya. So are they bacho for Maya in the first place? So I believe that as a panth we need to be spiritually strong, educationally strong, politically strong, physically strong. And we need to rethink how we want our Sikh society to be. And I think that what we have is in our Qaum from day one, not from day one, if we look at from Guru Arjan Dev Ji, our Qaum has been in a constant state of Sangharsh. And now we fought the Mughals, then we fought the British, and now we're fighting Brahman Raj. By coming out here, there's, for the first time, we're not in a state of Sangharsh, but we're in a different battle. This battle is a battle of assimilation. And are you going to retain your horn, who you are in this capitalist society? And so it's a different battle, but we're not being shot. And if you look at from day one, from Guru Sahib's time, the cream of our panth were always either being shaheed or they're being imprisoned. And that happens even till today. The people that will give direction to your panth. By coming out here, we are now, from the first time, we are now learning who we are. So we can now study all our granths. We can now rediscover what rags are. We can rediscover our instruments. We can rediscover our boli. We can rediscover all this, but make sure we're not being... The battle here is the battle of being too comfortable. I know? But it gives us a time to refresh and then take all that Sikhi back. And we need to use this very wisely. I know? And that's why I believe that we are going to see a renaissance period, because we're going to have prachar in multiple languages. You guys are a big part of that. I know? And we're going to have prachar all over around the world. I know? But that prachar shouldn't be just that we dress up. That prachar should be that andro. It comes just like dordnu rekna, that the Sikhi that people see, yes, your bana, yes, your thing, but it's the naam in the wisdom of what you speak. And that it comes from the naam inside you in the first place.
But so just to quickly jump in, I didn't realize how late it was. That's how, when you say we're having a good time, time flies. So I think we have to cut the podcast. Not even sure, it's been so long. But I still want to talk about one last topic on the World Sikh Parliament. Because you didn't mention that, but I think definitely we need to have a part 2. Maybe even a part 3 as well from this as well.
Sorry, the user realised that.
No.
Pracharaks, we talk.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think shout out to Gurpreet Singh as well. He did say that when you meet Bhai Jagjit Singh, he will talk forever. He did say that as well. In a good way. He did say it in a good way. So I definitely experienced that for the first time now as well. But can we just speak a little bit about the Sikh World Parliament as well? I think that's a very important thing.
Okay, we'll do it very quickly.
Well, quickly-ish. You don't have to rush too much, G, but then it'll be good to finish off. And definitely, I think
it's very important, Sikhi, that we take the Panth's Jimevari on our shoulders. Too many people in the Panth want other people to be Shaheed or change happen in our Panth, but won't do anything themselves. And we've become a Panth of analysts, where we analyse the events in the Panth and we have opinions on it, but we're not changing the Panth ourselves. And so we have to realise, we as a generation, especially when you get in your mid-20s, I will often look at that. And when I was looking at all these things being Shaheed, for example, like we're doing this today, Bhai Jagjit Singh Sohan, we talked about him yesterday. He was 19 years old. We were doing probably just starting university then, weren't we? Most of them things that we have pictures on, from Jathadar Sukhdev Singh to Amrit Singh to Gurjant Singh and all they're all Shaheed. I'm older than them. And so you got to realise that they were doing a lot at a young age. And because they took the Panth Jimevari on their shoulders, Bhai Taru Singh was a Mahapurush by 21. His dad was Shaheed when he was a young child. But they took the Panth Jimevari on their shoulders, And so we got to move beyond just being analysts, where we have a discussion on social media about, this is happening, and realise actually the Panth is our Panth. The future, what kind of Sikhi, one of my talks is, what kind of Sikhi are we going to leave for the next generation? Because we should seriously be thinking this. I know when I came into Sikhi, there was probably 3 issues that divided our Qawm. 3 what you would call controversial issues. In my lifetime, that's now gone to 10. That's terrible. That means that we as a Panth haven't sorted them out. And we've got to this thing, well, let's not even discuss anything because it's controversial. No, we have to be bringing our Panth together all the time, which means that, we should be discussing things and we should be sorting things out. And then we should be saying, because what happened in the old times, they used to have Sarba Khalsa and they used to have one resolution and everyone implemented it. What we now have is we have conferences and we'll have 20 different matte and no one implements them. And then, so what we've been thinking is, well, basically, as a Panth, can we rely on what the Shromani Committee is doing and these Jathadar, which are picked by the governments, whether it's through the Badals, ultimately through the governments, and 2 of our Taqs, that followed by a lot of youth, Hazur Sahib, Patna Sahib, are not even controlled by Sikhs, they're controlled by the BJP, because it's Maharashtra government, etc. Because the Gurdwara Sudhar Lair, where we had all the morche to free our Gurdwara, they all started in Pakistan side of Punjab. So my Peshokar is from that side. And my grandfather, who witnessed a partition, he said to me, Sikhi was always stronger on that side. Nankana Sahib, Panja Sahib. That's why you find all the original Shaheedi and Morche were all from that side. So they came from that side, and then they went onto this side, and they freed the Gurdwara. Jabbiyan were given in 1921, I believe, to Babbar Singh from Darbar Sahib, etc. And they only went as far as Delhi. That whole Gurdwara Sadar layer, which Bhai Rama Singh, Baba Gurbachan Singh, Bin Ramale, Baba Atar Singh, Mastawane Wale, all of them were all involved in. That's what they freed all them Gurdwara from the Gore. They never got to Asur Sahib and Panja Sahib. Patna Sahib. They didn't even reach them. They were just trying to sort that out. That was a big enough accomplishment in itself at that time. You know? And so, basically we have to think, well, if we carry on like this, because I went to that Corommelia conference in Ireland where we were having this 3-day debate with all the Muslim leaders, the 21 of them, and there was 9 of us. And they were telling me, when we were having informal discussions, they said to me, I thought they were just Sunnis and Shias, and they don't like each other in Islam. And the Muslim leader said to me, he goes, no, there's actually 55 sects in Islam, and we all kill each other. And I said, well, I didn't realize it was that bad, And I goes, well, I'm quite fortunate that we have the occasional skirmish, but basically we have 3 or 4 Jathibandiya, but no one's killing each other. That I thought, actually, we're in quite a good state, actually, compared to these guys. And he says something really important to me. He goes, but you're only 500 years old. We're 2,000 years old. Where are you going to be in 2,000 years? And that got me thinking, yeah, where are we going to be in 2,000 years? Are we still going to be one? Because in fact, Christianity is all over the place. Islam, they've got all these things where they're arguing over, etc. Unless we're not solving the problems of a Panth every generation, we are going to get more and more divided. There are going to be more and more. You hear it in youth already that, which version of Sikhi are you following? And so we have to become problem solving. And so we thought, well, can we basically rely on the Shiromani Committee? And I've been around enough from the late, early 90s, when we were saying to Shiromani Committee, you've got to have global Sikh involvement. And they've always just basically said no, because they like their control. And they will take 1 or 2 superficial people. And we've tried that, reform it, tried to get rid of the Badal. So many things people have tried to actually bring some Sadar in the Panth. And what happens is people get imprisoned, people get Shaheed, various other things have happened. So ultimately, we have to think that the Shiromani Committee is 125 years old. Surely even the people that created the Shiromani Committee would have thought in 125 years Sikhs will have created something else to control the Panth. And we are not a Panth of just Sikhs in Punjab. And if any other religion had done that, it wouldn't make sense. It's like me saying to you that let's control the whole of Christianity from New York State. No, Christianity is a worldwide religion. You wouldn't control the whole of Islam from Yorkshire. So why are we trying to control the whole of Sikhi from Punjab? Because basically our birthplace is Nankana Sahib. If you look at the Panth, our birthplace is Anandpur Sahib. Our Panj Piare came from all over India. We are a global religion. We have more Sikhs living in Vancouver. We have more Sikhs just in California than we probably have in England now. But we give that prominence to these takhts. I'm not saying we're going to remove the takhts or anything else like that. I'm just saying that we need to have a global voice as a Panth so that we can get together every year and we can say, well, what problem are we going to solve this year? And so when we were thinking about this, I thought, well, we need to study what other religions have done. You should always learn from other people's good things and bad things. So when you study Islam, Islam had 2 great empires. One was the Ottomans and one was the royal family of Saudi Arabia, and which is still there. The Ottomans have obviously disappeared. Both of them tried to control Islam, and they had this huge clash as a result. But they had their own version of Islam. And whereas most of the activists of their Qawm or their Ummah was basically they were killed or controlled because they weren't coming under their version of Islam. They were like sidelined. We are in a takht situation where our Hond is a Akal Takht Sahib. We can't have Sabrat Khalsas there in a free environment where we can freely speak. So what did they do? in the 1950s and the 1960s, they met in Cairo, they met in Tripoli, they met in Beirut, they met in various parts, where all of their leading activists would come together every year and say, we're going to sort this out, we're going to sort this out, we're going to sort this out. What happened? Over 20, 30 years of that networking, that thinking, coming together on one page, by the 80s, it became the fastest growing religion on this earth. It takes that time, it's that lag. So what happened with us as Sikhs, we had the G20 in Smethwick, where we had these 20 countries and we had leading Sikh voices come together. It was a 3-day conference in Smethwick. That led on to the Sabra Khalsa, which coincidentally as Maharaj's Gala Vartonia happening thing, and Jathedar Hawara became the Jathedar, and then we had the Sabra Khalsa. And so after that, that idea of the World Sikh Bank and the World Sikh Parliament that we floated at that time was presented there. Harinder Singh presented it there, and everyone said, yeah, we should do this. Discussions happened with Jathedar Hawara. He said, yeah, we need to have a globalized voice. We need to have a place where we have a strategic think tank where we can get together and we have the best brains of our Panth coming together every year and thinking, what can we do for our Panth? And so then we had the first big meeting in New York where a lot of these activists that I had seen in Panthic news and everything, like Dr. Amarjit Singh from TV84, Himmat Singh, people, all over North America, we came from Europe and we had 2-3 days where we all spent together. And then we created the World Sikh Parliament. The idea is half of it's outside, half of it's from Punjab. The people in Punjab, they had a conference in Chandigarh where they had all the best brains coming together. Now, obviously, Kisan Morcha happened and a lot of things happened there, but a lot of them ideas then filtered out to many of the things that were happening there at that time. Then after New York, we met in Germany, we met in Toronto, we met in all of these things. So every year, the World Sikh Parliament comes together. So the idea behind it is, if we start networking now, all the active people in the Panth, and we then start talking to each other, and we start sharing ideas, within a number of years we can develop PR with each other. We're going to realise, actually, this is your project, I can enhance that project because I've got this project. And you're doing this. Well, let's all concentrate on sorting this out this year, so at least we're sorting something out. And even if you got them 10 things, well, let's just sort something out. Let's sort out grooming. Let's sort out identity crisis. That's what all these things like Gurpreet's doing Saving Punjab. I'm doing the parenting courses. And other people might be doing referendums. Other people might be doing educational stuff. Wherever United Sikhs do their stuff, Khalsa, everyone's doing their own stuff. But let's all talk at least. And so it's now been going all these years. Obviously, it was delayed through COVID because no one could meet each other. Latest one we just had at Toronto. This year we're going to meet again. But now everyone's created this common working relationship. And we want now, because what it is the Parliament is now, and maybe in the future they'll change the name. It might not be Parliament, because that's, maybe some people see it as a Western concept, but ultimately it's a Sarva Khalsa. But we're having it as a mobile thing until we can get to a point where we can have it at Siri Kal Takht Sahib. But just because we can't have it at Siri Kal Takht Sahib doesn't mean that we don't get together. Does that make sense? It still means that we've got to solve our issues. I mean, the fact that the parenting course has gone to so many America towns, there's so many families that have benefited from it. And so we have started solving problems as we're going along. Does that make sense? And so we can't wait for other people to decide what Sikhi we're going to give to our grandchildren. We have to decide that. We have to create that bar so high that it's not like, yeah, we had 400 years of history and then basically everyone started playing Xbox. And that's it. And then, what happened after that? Nothing. We got to think, well, that Sikh history is going to carry on for another 400 years. And so that's what the World Sikh Parliament, I would urge every one of your viewers, if you got a talent, particularly BBR, because we want massive BBR representation, which is not, because when you put something up like that, you have to work with the elders, because they have a track record of seva. And I've seen that even with Gurdwara committees, you will have these young youth Gurdwara committees, they don't work. And you have these old things that don't work. It's a combination of having the sage and wisdom and the jarba of the elders and the energy of the youth. And both have to come in hand, and then you have successful things that work. So the World Sikh Parliament, I believe, is the most important project of our generation. Just like in the previous generation, Gurdwara nu azad karna siga, and a qaum nu khara karna siga. Because if we can get this right, our children will not have a Sikhi where they're being confused. Our children will have a Sikhi where it's quite pure. And I believe that we have overcomplicated Sikhi. We create too. If you're a Munna person coming into Sikhi now, I think it's quite hard. They get hit by all of this stuff. What jathebandi are you? What camp are you going to? What books are you reading? What red do you follow? And the problem is all these people that argue over red, most of them don't even have any red. In terms of, if you say to them, Aaj Amrit Vela karige, they look at you like you're weird. But they'll have these discussions about all this stuff. Sikhi has to be practical. And I was fortunate I came into a Sikhi not knowing any of this stuff. So it didn't affect me. I came into Sikhi just knowing, actually, these are good things. And everybody from all the groups at that time said, these things are really good. Just go to them, get Naam, and just jump it. And as a result, I had an experience of Sikhi which was like very beautiful and clean. And then 4 years for me were an amazing time for me. I would love it if everybody in the Panth had that. Not just for 4 years, maybe I'd have it for 20 years. We can create these things because we are now decision makers in the Panth. So we have to say, because there's too much of like, oh, it's just bad, so let's just forget it. There's a lot of like apathy. And apathy is dangerous. It's laziness. Let's not solve a problem because it'll be too hard to solve. Oh, it'll be too political, it'll be too complicated. Jagraj wasn't like that. Jagraj said, well, this is a problem, let's sort it. We need prachar, let's create a basic of Sikhi. We need press thing, let's create Sikh PA. He was a pioneer, wasn't he? We don't need one Jagraj, we need hundreds of them. Every person should be like that, thinking, these are the Jimmewari of the Panth. Maybe my ideas are wrong, maybe you got a better idea. So what does Gurbani says? Aithe bishao safa, Simran karige, and let's do vichar. And we as a Panth, every year, we should be getting together and we should be saying, what are we going to solve this year in our Panth? And that is what the Parliament is about. And if you have any PR for the Panth, you should be a well-wisher of it. Because all these people that have self-interest will not want anything to succeed. Because all they want is they're in these clone cultures themselves and they can't think outside of that. So they don't care about what's happening with the Munna on the street, the fact that he goes to a Gurdwara and he's not learning anything, because they've got their smagans and barsis and everything else. Whereas because we were the Munna, we care what that Munna, because that was us. That 90% of our Sangat don't come to the Gurdwara. That's a massive issue. That we only see him at Nagar Kirtans. That's a massive issue for us. We should be thinking how we're going to solve that. It's not about just having Sikhi for the Amritaris. It's about, we should be having Sikhi as a globalized vision. How are we going to take Guru Nanak Dev Ji's message and implement it en masse? That's what we should be thinking. And for us, we have to be brave enough to say, actually, if you guys are comfortable in your clone structures, it's fine. We're not saying anything to you. Anandamano. But the Panth is big. It's like I was in California and people are arguing between these two Jathebandiyan. And I was saying, well, what are you going to do when you get Afghani Sikhs? What are you going to do when you see African Sikhs? They have totally different. Your two Jathebandi actually agree with each other. They only disagree on one issue. That we've got so many different types of Sikhs in our Panth. What are you going to do when you have Sikh Liga Sikhs and Vanjari Sikhs? Their cultural norms are very different. But Nanak Naam Leva, they're still part of Nanak Naam, aren't they? And we have to think on that level because we have a huge amount of global talent who want to do seva for the Panth but don't know what they can do. And if we have streams of projects and we say to them, look, you can plug in, because most people want to do seva but they don't know what to do. And because what it is you've got the same number of people that are constantly being burnt out because they're having to do a lot. And it's because we're not good at delegating and we're not good at using our resources. And so the few activists, number one, we're poor because our Gurdwaras have a lot of money but no vision. So they just become de facto property companies just buying houses instead of creating pracharaks. And then we got all these activists that have got amazing ideas but they have that disconnect with the wealth, of our qawm, and so they're having to scrimp and save and often get burnt out, and we need to think, well, how are we going to solve this problem? And then generally we have a situation where most of our young kids, they need Sikhi taught to them in the language that they speak. So we have to create a generation of pracharaks around the world, which obviously you guys in your Vidyala are trying to do as well. So all of these things need to be scaled up. And if we all come together once a year, doesn't matter where we are, this is why it's on rotation. We will Toronto, we'll go to California, we'll go to New York, we'll go to UK, etc. And it's about everyone having buy-in. And I see that within 10, 15 years, the impact of that, we will become the fastest growing religion on this earth. Right. Because no one else has got the solution to depression. No one else has got the solution to loneliness. No one else has got the solution to all the world's problems the way Naam has. Naam is such a pure, simple concept that if taught properly, the message of Guru Granth Sahib is the fundamental cure to the world's problems. Tika, has that explained it?
That's amazing. And definitely part 2 needs to come. So thank you so much, Bhai Sahib, for your time. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say, do you have a final message that hopefully could summarize in 1 minute, like a final thing that you want to finish off for with the viewers and ourselves?
I'll tell you, you remember I said I did Ardaas that Maharaj, jithe main jama mein pahunche hoye Gursikhan di sangat mile. I met this Singh in Vancouver. First time I ever met the Singh. Pratan Singh was one of Bhai Singh's sathis. I just looked at him, he was sitting across the room. And he started telling me about my life. Never met this guy before. Said to me, Jagjit Singh, tu ithe agge Simran karda hunda si, tu hon thoda tilla ho gaya apne Simran ch, and tu aa karega kar na karega. And I was like, amazed, this guy's just telling me about my life. And he started telling me about things I was going to do in the future. And I was like, when you get mesmerized, And then at the end of the conversation, he said to me something really piara. He goes, Pot, inna Simran kar, that basically anybody that goes near you, they want to become a Gursikh. And that's the whole thing. Inna Simran karo, that you radiate Sikhi. And if you're not at that stage, then you still need to do more Simran. That is the source. That's what it all comes down to. And it's such simple. Sikhi is so beautiful and simple. We overcomplicate it. And everything comes back to Naam.
Well, thank you so much for that, Bhai Sahib. Thank you for all the Sikha you've given and sharing all the experiences and the great seva you've been doing. I will make sure in the description you put links to all the seva that Bhai Sahib is doing, whether that's through the Shere charity, Khalsa Foundation, the Sikh parenting course, and the World Sikh Parliament, all these things. And definitely leave in the comment section any questions that you have. And then hopefully Guru Sahib Ji Kirpa Karo, we can pick up this podcast in the future. And if you have any questions, then we can ask those in the next podcast as well. We'll make sure we start early in the morning so we get the whole day. It's like we're having our own 8-hour course as well here. So I really do appreciate your time. We'll finish off with a Fateh Ji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.